The Amish Visitors. Copyright 2018 by Samantha Price. Chapter 1. What do you think about your sister getting married? Timothy looked into the dark eyes of Tanya, the girl he hoped to marry. I think it's okay. That's who she wanted to marry. He turned slightly to see the happy couple adoringly staring into each other's eyes. In the beginning, he'd had his doubts about Jacob and the way he'd pursued Rebecca, but in the end he found Jacob was a decent man and he knew they loved each other. They have a ready-made family now with little Micah. Rebecca loves children, so that worked out well for her. And for Jacob. They do make a lovely-looking couple. I'd reckon your mother would be sad now, because she's only got boys left in the house. She might be pleased. No, Rebecca would have helped her to do all the chores. We boys have always done our fair share, don't worry about that. Anyway, Rebecca will be visiting. I know, but it won't be the same for your mother. Timothy chuckled. This is her first chance to have grandchildren. She's very excited about that, and not much will change in the house because Rebecca was hardly ever home. Because she was delivering babies? Yeah, because of her midwifery. While things would stay much the same for his mother, Timothy had a whole world opening up for him. He was taking over Rebecca's bedroom, a bedroom that would be shared with none of his younger brothers. He would finally get a decent night's sleep and have alone time. Time to ponder what he'd do with his life. He couldn't tell Tanya that, because he wanted to sound more grown up. She'd have no idea he was sharing a room with 3 of his younger brothers, and sometimes 5 were in the room if one of the youngest ones crept into the room at night. Tanya smiled at him and set his heart aflutter. He'd never taken a girl on a buggy ride in Pleasant Valley. He had been close to one girl when he'd been away working, but nothing had come from it. Tanya was the only girl who turned his head, but he didn't want to appear too interested in case that frightened her away, just interested enough so she wouldn't be looking around for another man. How old do you think you'll be when you get married? He asked as innocently as he possibly could. I don't want to be waiting around forever. I'd prefer to marry young so I can have lots of children. He nodded in agreement. It was the Amish way to marry young. Sometimes it was fun growing up in a household of 15 people, but it had its downside. The worst thing was waiting for the bathroom. Rebecca's bedroom, former bedroom, was connected to the interior of the house with a door right beside the only bathroom, so he'd have quicker access in the mornings. Conveniently, it also had a door leading outside, which was good for privacy. No one would need to know his comings and goings. As soon as Rebecca had become engaged, he got in first to ask his mother for the room, fearing his father, who was also the community's bishop, might want to take it over for his office. I told you I got a job at the cafe where we all used to go, didn't I? Tanya asked. The coffee pod? Yeah. No. I hadn't heard. When? In the last week. I've worked there for 4 days now. I'm happy for you. Now he could see her whenever he wanted. Do you like the work? I do, but I think I'll like it better once I know what I'm doing. You're a waitress. Yeah, and they're training me to make the coffees. Timothy chuckled at being trained for such a thing. In his household, making coffee was just adding hot water to granules and a quick swirl with a spoon. How hard could it be to use one of those commercial coffee-making contraptions? Is it that hard? It's really not as easy as it looks. It's not just coffee, it's short shots, long shots, macchiato, lattes, and I cannot begin to tell you how hard it is to froth the milk for the cappuccinos. I must admit, I never gave it much thought. It's not as easy as it looks. Tanya looked around. I should go talk to my friends. With that, she stood up and walked away. He knew he'd said something wrong. Laughing when she spoke about her job hadn't been a smart thing to do, judging from her reaction. Timothy looked down at his plate of half-eaten food, still wondering what was hard about Tanya's job. It wasn't as difficult as the work he did. It wasn't like being out in the hot sun, or the biting cold hammering a section of roof, or working until your fingers were raw and bleeding. When he looked up to find where Tanya was, intending to apologize for his insensitivity, he couldn't help noticing a beautiful young woman. She had a toddler on one hip and she was talking to his mother. He decided the child she was holding couldn't be hers, because she looked too young. If he hadn't already been in love with Tanya, he would have taken the opportunity to have his mother introduce them. Just then, his two youngest brothers ran through the crowd hollering, causing Timothy to fly into action. They'd get into terrible trouble if their father heard them. He caught up with them and grabbed them. He hung onto Joel's hand, while he one-arm hoisted 5-year-old Andrew onto his hip. He hurried with them off to one side, where he could scold them out of anyone's earshot. He lowered Andrew to the ground and, without letting go of their arms, sat down on a chair by the barn with the two boys standing in front of him. "What did you think you were doing?" "He told me to," Andrew said, earning himself a sharp jab in the ribs from Joel. "What were you thinking, Joel? This is Rebecca's wedding. It's a very special day. She's getting married to Jacob, and people only get married once. This is her most special day." The two boys stared at him, as though they didn't think it was a good enough excuse not to run around screaming. "Do you want to get into trouble from Mom and Dad?" The boys vigorously shook their heads. "You'd have to know that was going to get you into trouble. You're not allowed to do that." "He did it. He made me," Andrew said. Joel gave Andrew a shove. "Stop getting me into trouble. Joel, you shouldn't be telling people to do things. Especially things that'll get you both into trouble. And Andrew, you have your own mind. You don't do bad things just because someone tells you to." Timothy sat there trying to look angry, but he couldn't help being amused that Joel had talked Andrew into it and then had joined in. Timothy looked around and saw his father talking to someone on the opposite side of the yard. He might not have heard the boy's nonsense. "If I let you both go without telling Dad, will you promise me you won't do that again, and you'll behave for the rest of the day?" They both nodded. "If you do anything, you'll be in bed for the rest of the night and without supper. Is that what you want?" Andrew shook his head, while Joel mumbled something about it not being good. "God is watching, and He tells us to obey our parents. Dad is the bishop, so we must set an example of good behavior. Okay?" "We know, Timothy," Joel said with an attitude Timothy didn't like. "Watch it, Joel. If you do something like that again, you might be in your room for the rest of the night, and all day tomorrow as well. Do you want that?" He stared sternly at Joel, and Joel shook his head. "Good. You can both go now, but if you do that or anything else naughty again tonight, I will carry both of you to your room myself, and then Dad will find out. Is that understood?" "We'll be good," Joel said. "Yeah, we'll be good," Andrew echoed. "Okay, off you go." Both boys started off running. "Walk," Timothy said, and both boys slowed to a fast walk. Timothy stood, then leaned against the barn looking at all the wedding guests. The pretty young woman he'd seen earlier was now sitting by herself with the same child on her knees, and no one else around her. There were a few single women among the wedding guests that had come from all over, but still, this young woman stood out. Even though the stranger was beautiful, he wasn't going to risk his budding relationship with Tanya for the more attractive stranger. He did his best to put her out of his mind, and looked around for Tanya so he could apologize for laughing about her needing training to make coffee. Then he found her talking to two of her friends, so he headed to the bride and groom instead. "Congratulations, Rebecca and Jacob, and the same to little Micah, wherever he is, on his new mother." "Thank you, and he's asleep," Jacob said. "Anne is watching him in Rebecca's old bedroom." "Ah, Rebecca's old bedroom, which is now officially mine." Timothy chuckled, pleased with himself. "Or will be mine after tonight. The first night I'll sleep in it will be tomorrow." Rebecca pulled a face. "You have cleared that with Mom, haven't you?" "Of course I have. The very day I found out you were getting married." Timothy chuckled again. "I still have a few things there. I'll be back to collect them later," Rebecca said. "I'll box them up for you. I can't wait to move in. I've been thinking about it for ages." "We'll be back in about 2 weeks," Jacob told him. "I'm taking Rebecca to visit a few of my friends and relations who weren't able to make it to the wedding." "Sounds like a fun time," Timothy said. "Are you working yet?" Jacob asked. "Not yet. I'm still looking. I might have a few days' work for you when we get back. We've got some changes I want to make to the new house before we move into it. We've got a few months left on the lease for the other house, so the timing will be perfect. Sure, I'll help all you want, but I won't take payment. Yeah, you will? You'll have to, because I need a professional builder such as yourself, and a professional needs to be paid. Timothy had no intention of charging his brother-in-law. He'd been raised to do things for people without expecting anything in return. His parents were always helping others financially, and that's why they didn't have much themselves. How about we talk about it when you get back? Jacob nodded. Okay. When someone else came up to talk to the couple, Timothy walked away smiling about the solace he'd soon enjoy in his new bedroom. He'd have hours of blissful sleep without anyone snoring, without someone shaking him awake to take them to the toilet, and without anyone insisting to leave the light on because they were scared. Timothy also wanted to enjoy at least a little time to himself. 6 months in his own room while courting Tanya, and another 6 months engagement, and then they'd get married. That was his rough plan. As the wedding drew to a close, Timothy helped get his younger brothers into bed. His mother had enough on her hands, with organizing the cleanup in the small kitchen, and the adjoining annex where the extra food had been prepared for the crowds. Timothy had never gotten around to apologizing to Tanya, because she left the wedding early. By the time he got to bed, it was nearly 11. Tonight he was sleeping in his old room with his brothers, but at first light he'd start moving his belongings. Timothy woke early the next morning. Today was his big moving day. He grabbed an armful of clothes and headed downstairs. He was walking past the kitchen when his mother stopped him. Where are you going? I'm taking a few things to my new room. He couldn't stop grinning at the thought. No, Timothy. What are you talking about? She shook her head. With a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach, he walked closer to her. I'm taking clothes to Rebecca's old room, my new room. She didn't have any expression on her face, not sad or surprised or upset. He added, You told me I could have it. Did I? Yeah. I asked you as soon as Rebecca said she was getting married. That will have to wait because we have visitors coming to stay. In shock, Timothy dropped all his clothes onto the floor. You're kidding me. No. I'm not. It's all been arranged a few days ago. If I said you could have that room, it slipped my mind completely. I've been waiting weeks for it and looking forward to it. I don't know of another man my age sharing a room with his younger brothers. I can't make new rooms, Timothy. We have to make do with what God has provided for us. You have a roof over your head, so you really shouldn't complain at all. I'm sorry if I said you could have that room. I shouldn't have. He frowned at his mother. You said visitors. Who are these people who are staying? Hopefully the guests wouldn't be staying long. She's being brought over today. She's a widow. Oh? How long will she be in my room? Timothy asked. Until she finds a home of her own. She's settling into this community from a much smaller community on the other side of, somewhere else. I forget where. Your father would know. Oh, and she has her daughter too. She's a darling little girl. He sighed. She stared at his discarded bundle of clothing. Pick up your clothes and go back upstairs with them. If they need washing again from being on the floor, you'll be washing them, not me. With one swooping motion, he scooped up his clothes. What does it matter anymore? Timothy, I don't like your attitude. This woman's in need, and we have to open our doors and our hearts to people in need. One day it might be you. He hugged his clothes to himself while putting on an exaggerated pity-me face. Is that what I have to do to get a room of my own? Be in need? Anyway, I am in need. I'm in need of a room of my own. His mother laughed at him. Go on with you, Timothy. He was tempted to tell her charity begins at home, but then she would have told him that those words weren't from the Bible. He'd never been quick with words or good in an argument. His mother said, When Abigail moves out, you can have the room. Timothy blew out a deep breath. Okay. You won't forget this time. No, I won't forget again, Mom said with a smile. Good, and will they be having meals with us? Of course. She's a young woman and her daughter is not even 2. There's no kitchen in her bedroom. Oh, I see. That's true. You said the woman was young? Yeah. She's right around your age, I believe. Now I'm making pancakes for breakfast, so take those clothes back to your room and then come back and sit down. That cheered him up a little. I'm starving. I'll be back down in a minute. And don't wake your brothers. Don't worry, I won't. Then there'll be more pancakes for me. Chapter 2. When Timothy got back down to the kitchen, his father was sitting at the table starting on breakfast. He looked over the top of his glasses at Timothy. Your mother tells me you're disappointed you're not getting Rebecca's room. Figuring he was in for one of his father's long lectures, he slumped into a chair. The poor woman's in trouble and needs a place to stay, I get that. I don't mind at all now, since Mom explained her situation to me. It's fine. She's not exactly in trouble. She's moving to our community. Timothy immediately thought of the young woman he'd seen at his sister's wedding. She was young and that child could have been her daughter. Was she at the wedding? Yeah, she was. Now he didn't mind so much if this widow in need was the same attractive woman he'd seen. Tell me about her. Her family used to live close, but then they moved up north when she was still little, because her uncle started a community there. There were only a handful of families. It's a remote region of upstate New York, away from the larger communities there, and I believe the man she married was much older and a widower when she married him. Timothy cringed. He must have been quite a bit older then, because she looked quite young, if it's the one I'm thinking of. That's right, he was older, with grown children. Now that he has gone to be with God, she wants to make a new life for herself. Her father wrote and asked if we'd watch over her. He feels she would do better and brighten up in a new community. And she has a daughter? That's right. His mother added, she's a darling little thing and she's a few months off being 2. And how long will they be staying with us? Timothy asked. Just until she gets to know the place, and if she likes it, she will stay and join us. His mother added, she said she'll be looking to buy a house here. She must be a rich widow then, if she can afford to buy a house. Timothy. His mother clearly disapproved of his comment. She inherited quite a sum from her late husband, the bishop said. I see. Timothy knew everyone needed a helping hand every now and again, even if they had money enough. I don't mind if we have her here. And I hope you'll be nice to her, his mother said, and since she's around your age, you could introduce her to your friends. I could. He had no intention of doing any such thing. When will she arrive here? His mother glanced out the window. Any time now. And you can help her move in. Of course I will, said Timothy, but I do have to find a job somewhere as well. Yeah, you must find work, the bishop said. Mom was still talking of their visitors. I can't imagine she would have brought many possessions with her. I heard she sold everything. She just has her personal items and clothes for herself and the little one, I think. One by one, Timothy's brothers walked into the kitchen wiping their eyes. Looks like you had a good sleep, their father said. We did, the second oldest brother Aidan said as he sat down in the chair next to Timothy. Timothy finished off his breakfast as fast as he could, and then headed to his shared room, which was now empty. It was the only way he could find some peace in the normally rowdy household. He didn't get much time to rest, though, because 15 minutes later he heard the clip-clopping of a horse and the sound of buggy wheels rolling over gravel. He looked out the window and saw a buggy, which he was sure belonged to Samuel Kaufman. When it stopped, a heavily pregnant Mary Kaufman got out of the buggy along with their daughter Lois, and then Samuel stepped out. Next was the young woman he'd hoped to see, the one who was to be staying there, the attractive young woman he'd seen at the wedding. Even though she was pretty, he was still upset over her taking his room. Then she reached into the buggy and placed her small child on the ground, and held the little girl's hand. Mary said something to her and gave a nod toward the house, and at the same time Samuel began unloading boxes. Timothy hurried out to give Samuel a hand. He walked out through the front door to see his father and mother taking the woman into Rebecca's old room, around the corner from the front entrance of the house. The room had an entrance around the side of the house, as well as an internal doorway into the house. Hi Samuel, need a hand? Samuel looked up. I sure would appreciate it. I don't know what's in all these boxes, but they're fairly heavy. I heard she's moving here permanently. Timothy said as he lifted one of the boxes. That's right. She's recently widowed too, the poor woman. Timothy said in a low voice, she looks far too young to be married, let alone widowed, from what I've seen of her, which is only from a distance. She's young, that's true, and she's here for a new start. Good idea. As he carried the boxes to the room, he wondered why the woman couldn't have stayed in Samuel's house. Timothy respected Samuel and looked up to him. He was successful, owning rental houses and thriving businesses, and he was a nice guy who was liked by everyone. Samuel and Mary lived in a huge house, and Timothy was certain there were spare bedrooms. Why hadn't Samuel offered for her to stay there? Everyone was in the room talking, so Timothy placed the box down. He saw the woman looking at him, but still he didn't make eye contact. The third time he came in with boxes, his father said, "You haven't met Timothy yet, have you, Abigail Walton?" "No, I haven't." "Is this your son?" "One of them. This is Timothy, our oldest." "Pleased to meet you, Timothy." She smiled sweetly and held a delicate hand in the air. He took hold of her fingertips and gave her hand a little shake. He was surprised how cold her hand was to the touch. "Pleased to meet you. Abigail, is it?" "That's right. It's Abigail, and this is my daughter Ferris." He looked at the small girl stomping around in her cute little black boots. "That's an unusual name. I like names that are different. Ferris was my late husband's middle name." She stared at Timothy, and everyone in the room went quiet, and Timothy didn't know how to respond. He finally said, "Do you need all the boxes in here, or can some of them be stored in the barn?" "I think they can all fit in here." "Are there any more?" Abigail asked. "Just a few." Timothy headed off to help Samuel bring in the last of the boxes. When he got out to the buggy, he asked Samuel, "What's she like?" "I don't really know. I haven't had much time to talk with her. Mary said she's nice." He knew Mary would think everybody was nice. "She seems pleasant enough." "Yeah, do you think so?" Samuel asked, grinning. "Yeah, I do, and the little girl's adorable. Mary's had fun with them there the last few days, and Lois has too, but we've got friends coming to stay. Wives of friends of mine are coming to help Mary with the new baby. I didn't even know Abigail was coming here until this morning. No one tells me anything around here. I know you're a little crowded, but I'll be full to overflowing as well. I've got 3 husbands and wives coming, and around 5 of their children. I was discussing the problem with your mother, and she said your father had already been asked by Abigail's father to watch over her, and he had agreed to look after Abigail. Then your father asked me, and I said I'd have her at our place until all my visitors came." "That's good." She said that Abigail and Ferris could stay in Rebecca's room, since Rebecca wouldn't be needing it anymore. "Great idea," Timothy said sarcastically as he picked up the last box. "What's in this one, Bricks?" Samuel chuckled. "Stop complaining. We're nearly done." After he'd finished with moving the boxes, Timothy headed into town with a list of places he'd ask for a job. If he couldn't find any building work, his plan was to take any job he could get. He knew his father would be on his back about it soon, and was currently giving him a small amount of leeway before the big talk about where he was going in life. That would be followed by the lecture that if a man didn't work, he shouldn't eat. Like his working teenage brothers, he'd been paying board, but for now he was using his savings and they would only last so long. He needed a job. 4 hours later, after striking out at each of the places he'd been to, he needed cheering up, and he decided seeing Tanya would do just that. Anyway, he figured he could use a bite to eat too, and he'd just as soon patronize the place she was working. He walked into the cafe and took a seat at the back. When he looked up, he saw Tanya coming out of the kitchen. When she saw him, a big smile beamed across her face and she made her way toward him. He gave her a nod, and then opened the menu and waited until she got closer, before he looked at it. "I didn't know you were coming here today, Timothy. I didn't know myself into a few moments ago. I'm looking for a job and was talking to a few people." He was trying to make it sound more impressive than it was. Cold calling on several businesses, only to be told they had nothing, wasn't going to impress a girl like Tanya. Best he kept his job prospects fuzzy. "Good. You're staying in Pleasant Valley, then? I was intending to. I only went away for a little while for work experience. She nervously looked around. I've already been warned once today about talking to customers for too long. What are you having? She got her pen ready to write on her notepad. Just a plate of fries, thank you. Just fries. She jotted that down and then looked at him. He thought it would look better for her if he ordered something more substantial. Otherwise, her boss might think her friends were taking up tables for not much money. What do you recommend? I don't know. She sounded panicked. Just choose something. Looking down at the menu, the first thing he saw was number 4. I'll have the number 4. He passed the menu to her and she grabbed it, and then put it back down on the table. The menus stay on the tables. He nodded. Ah, very good. She walked away to take the order from another table. Timothy was pleased. She seemed happy to see him. A few minutes later she went behind the counter and, throwing a shawl about her shoulders, headed to the door. She smiled at him and gave a little wave. Bye, Timothy. He sprang to his feet and hurried over. Wait, where are you going? I've finished my shift. Good. Sit down and have something with me. She shook her head. I'm fine, thank you. Won't you join me? I can't. My mother is collecting me. Bye, Timothy. Wait. I was going to tip you. We share the tips, but thanks. And then she was gone. Now he was more depressed than he'd been before. He had no idea what he'd ordered from the menu, and the woman of his dreams had left without a care to eat on his own. When the other waitress brought out a huge plate of food, he hoped it wasn't for him. She placed a burger with the works, with a huge salad and fries, down in front of him. He hated to waste food, so he knew he'd have to eat it. He slowly made his way through more than half of the food in front of him, and couldn't force any more in. He left a tip, and feeling uncomfortably overfull, he made his way to the buggy. It was a bad day all around. He walked into the house to the sound of Abigail happily chatting away. He stuck his head through the doorway of the kitchen, and saw the visitor helping his mother prepare the evening meal. It occurred to him Mom was happy to have the company of another female now that Rebecca had gone. He didn't like the look of it. What if Mom got used to having Abigail around and wanted it to be a permanent arrangement? Then again, the young mother would prefer her own home if she had the money to have one, wouldn't she? Timothy heard a giggle and looked to the other side of the kitchen. Ferris was sitting in a high chair eating small pieces of food. There you are, Timothy, his mother said. Yeah, here I am. He walked into the kitchen and smiled back at the young girl who was offering him her food with her outstretched chubby arm. For me? He asked, Ferris moving forward. Thank you, Ferris. He took the food from her and pretended to eat it. You remembered her name, Abigail said, taking 2 steps toward him. Yeah, because it's such an unusual name. No one ever remembers her name. Abigail stared at him, and that made him feel awkward, so he changed the subject, talking about the first thing that popped into his head. Well, I struck out today in my job hunting, unfortunately. Something will come along soon, Mom said in her usual sympathetic tone. What do you do for work, Timothy? Abigail asked. He pulled out a chair and sat down. Any kind of construction work. Surely you can find a job somewhere if you've got those skills. I thought so too, but it's not happening. Believe me, I've tried, but I will keep trying. Why not do volunteer work? That made him annoyed. He spent his whole life doing volunteer work and helping others. I do a lot of that, but I need a proper job so I can get away from living in an overcrowded house. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed his mother glaring at him. That made him feel guilty, so he knew he'd have to be extra nice to make up for it. Instead of trying to be pleasant to Abigail, the woman who'd taken his room, it was easier to play with Ferris. What did you and your mom do today, Ferris? Ferris gurgled and passed him food, and Timothy pretended to eat it, making gobbling sounds, and that made Ferris laugh. Abigail said, We didn't do a lot, mainly unpacking. Timothy felt like telling her not to get too comfortable in that bedroom of his. His mother looked over at him playing with Ferris. Timothy, she's supposed to be eating, not playing. Make yourself useful doing something, okay? Yeah, Mom? I'll go see what the boys are doing in the barn. Good? He headed outside, wondering about Abigail and why she'd married a man so much older. Had she truly been in love? It seemed a true mismatch if her late husband was as old as Timothy had been told. Chapter 3. After Timothy's younger brothers headed to school the next morning, Timothy left the house without telling anyone where he was going. It didn't help him feel good about himself that 3 of his teenage brothers had jobs working on neighboring farms. A few hours later, after more failed attempts at finding work, he found himself back at the cafe where Tanya worked. He hoped she wouldn't think it too weird seeing him there again today, but she was the only person who made him happy these days. Just one look at her bright, cheerful face would keep him going for another few days and take his mind off the unwelcome visitor at home. When he sat down, a waitress came to take his order. He hesitated to look around and then asked about Tanya. "Tanya's not on the schedule today," the waitress said. He felt like his whole world had fallen apart. The day wasn't off to a good start. He'd been rejected by 2 building companies, nearly had a collision with a speeding car, had been taunted by a car full of Englisher youths as they sped past his buggy, and now this. "Just give me an orange juice, please." He normally only drank water, but he had to buy something now that he was sitting down. He certainly didn't want another burger. "Sure, anything to eat?" He spied some jars of cookies. "I'll have a chocolate cookie, thanks." She headed off, and then, just when he was feeling like the loneliest person in the world, he spotted Samuel Kaufman walking through the door. Timothy waved at him, and Samuel walked over. "You by yourself, Timothy?" "I am. I just had to get out of the madhouse. Do you want to join me?" Samuel chuckled. "Sure." He pulled out a chair and sat down across the table from him. "I've just finished a meeting and could do with refueling. I'm in the same boat as you, I'm afraid. A house full of people and it's all a little too much noise for me." He chuckled. "Ah, your visitors have arrived." "They have indeed. Not that I'm complaining, mind you." He picked up the menu and ran his eyes up and down it. After the waitress had taken his order and left, he said to Timothy, "I thought you might like your visitor. She's young and attractive and you're a single man." He nodded. "She seems okay, but I'm not interested." "You don't look very happy today, Timothy." I didn't know it showed." He leaned forward. "Just between you and me, Abigail's taken my room. I'm sharing with my brothers and I'm all squashed up. Rebecca was the only one with a room to herself, and that room should have gone to me. Mom even told me I could have it, and now she's saying she can't remember having said that. I asked for it the moment I found out Rebecca was getting married. You did mention that the other day, but I can assure you Abigail won't be staying that long." "How can you be so sure about that?" He tilted his head and stared at Samuel, wondering if he had some inside knowledge. Samuel shook his head. "No, I'm not sure at all. Do you think she wants to stay with your parents forever, though? She'd want a life of her own and her own home." Timothy shrugged his shoulders. "I guess it's unlikely she'd stay too long, but every day she's here it's another day I have to share a room, and it's not good. It's bad enough that I still live at home, but what do you think a prospective girlfriend will think of me when she finds out I'm sharing a room with a bunch of younger brothers?" Timothy shook his head. "She won't think that's very attractive." "And do you have your eye on anyone special?" Samuel smirked. "I do." He leaned forward and said, "She just got a job here. That's what I'm doing here today, but then I found out this is her scheduled day off." Samuel slowly nodded. "Ah, so that's what has caused the glum face." "I guess so." The waitress brought their coffee and orange juice to the table. After Timothy thanked her, he stared into his juice. "I've heard Abigail is looking to buy something here." Samuel looked up at him. "That's right." Samuel rubbed his beard. "I think what you need is a game plan." Timothy was willing to listen to the well-respected Samuel. Before Samuel had married, he had been very popular with women of all ages. It seemed every available woman in the community had wanted to marry him. Any advice Samuel could give him was something he'd definitely follow. "I'd appreciate any help you can give me." Any help at all? I think you should befriend Abigail, and after you've won her trust, offer to help her find a place. He raised his hand, but first become her friend, otherwise she'll figure out you're trying to get her out of her room, your room I mean, and then who knows? She could be the kind of woman who'd dig in her heels and stay longer. Timothy laughed. I'm not joking. Some women are like that. Timothy didn't like the sound of that. Well, you'd know. I haven't had a lot of experience with women. How do I gain her trust? Offer to help her with things. Offer to show her around the place. Take her out to lunch, or take her to meet other people. Just be a friend to her. Timothy didn't think it sounded like much of a plan. You think that's the fastest way to get her out? I'd say so. I'll try it. Thank you, Samuel. Now, do you have any advice about Tanya, the girl I like? She works here. Tell me about her. Samuel took a mouthful of coffee. She's got the most beautiful dark hair with eyes to match and creamy skin. How do I make her see what a good person I am? Are we talking about John Miller's daughter? Yeah. I think she likes me, but I'm too scared to ask her out in case she doesn't want to go out with me. Or she might say she will go out with me, but she could be doing it just so she won't hurt my feelings. In my experience, women like a hard-working man. Timothy slumped lower in his chair, just as the waitress brought their food orders to the table. Thanks, Samuel said. The waitress nodded and gave him a big smile before she left. It seems women of all ages were still attracted to Samuel. I don't have a job, Timothy blurted out. You've just come back from somewhere, haven't you? That was back a few months ago, but I'm here to stay now. I'm a builder. I can do any job on any building, large or small. That's interesting. I've got a lot of contacts in the real estate world, and I know a man who owns a large real estate firm. I was talking with him just yesterday. He's looking for someone to employ full-time doing odd jobs for the properties. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'd love that. There must be a lot of properties on their books to put someone on permanently. There are, and he also builds homes and sells them, so you'd also be working on those jobs when the other work is slow. All the properties are around this area, so you wouldn't be traveling out of town. It sounds ideal. How do you know this man? He manages some of my properties. Ah. Samuel pulled out a pen and wrote an address on a slip of paper. Go to this address and ask to speak with Austin Monty. He jotted some things down. Tell him I sent you, and you're there about the building maintenance job he and I were discussing. Thank you, Samuel. You have to impress him. He's not an easy man. You have to tell him how good you are. Timothy took the paper from him. I will. Will he be there today? He's there every day. I'll go there right now as soon as I leave here. Good. A busy man is an attractive man to a woman. She'll think you'd make a good husband. Was that Samuel's secret? Timothy drank his juice, and then placed the empty glass back on the white tablecloth. Okay, got it. And another thing. Timothy leaned forward. Don't appear too anxious. What do you mean? Timothy asked. About what? Don't chase a girl too hard. It's never good. No? Why not? Samuel's eyebrows rose. You came here today deliberately to see Tanya, I'm guessing? That's right. And I was here yesterday as well, and when I was just sitting down, she took my order and then she left because her shift was over. Just as I feared. He shook his head. And you come back again today? Timothy nodded. That's right. Too much, yeah. Way too much. You'll scare her off. You need to leave some space in between seeing her. Timothy rubbed his forehead. I'm glad she's not here today then. Just don't overdo it. Sometimes women want what they think they can't have. He studied Samuel's face, and it didn't crack with a smile. He must have been serious. Is that so? It is? Samuel slowly nodded. I thought you were supposed to let women know you're interested, otherwise how would they know? And you have to ask them to marry you at some point, so then they'd know you're interested. I just don't get it. I agree it is difficult. But you've got to get the balance right. You've got to get them on the hook first and then reel them in slowly. Like a fish? Exactly. Once you get them on the hook, that's a different thing altogether. You've got to get them on the line first? Exactly. Samuel leaned forward and patted him on the shoulder. Timothy took a bite of his cookie, pleased to be getting advice from the much older Samuel Kaufman. At one time, everyone thought Samuel was going to be a bachelor forever. Things had changed for Samuel when his sister and his brother-in-law both died unexpectedly, leaving him to raise his niece Lois. Lois had softened him, and soon afterwards he married Mary, who had become the live-in nursemaid for Lois. When Timothy and Samuel left the cafe, Timothy went straight to the address of the agency that Samuel had given him. When he walked into the office, he told the girl in the reception area he was there to see Austin Monty. He was told that Mr. Monty had appointments all day, and no one was getting in to see him without an appointment. He told her that Samuel Kaufman had sent him. 15 minutes later, he was sitting in front of Austin Monty, an overweight man, maybe 50-ish, with a bald patch on the top of his head that he tried to cover up by combing over the dark hair from one side of his head. He wore a thick gold chain around his neck. Samuel said I should come here about a job. He mentioned you were looking for someone for. You want to sell real estate? He said with a hint of sarcasm. Oh no. I wouldn't and couldn't do anything like that. Samuel said you wanted someone who could repair buildings. I'm a builder and I can do anything, any kind of building work on any house. The man stared at him hard. You look too young. Yes, I am young, which is good because I have loads of energy. I started learning when I was young, still in school. I work fast, I know what I'm doing, and I can name several people who'll vouch for my work. I'll even work for nothing for a couple of weeks so you can judge my work. He shook his head. That won't be necessary. If Samuel has recommended you, that's good enough for me. Very good. Finding available builders, or getting anyone to do any kind of work, is getting harder and harder. He moved around in his chair. That's why I came up with the idea of putting someone on full-time for maintenance work, rather than scrambling to find someone at the last minute. We've got enough work. On days when no jobs are scheduled, I can use you on other projects. That suits me. I like to be kept busy. The man leaned back in his chair and interlaced his fingers together. It was then that Timothy noticed the thick gold and diamond rings flashing from both of his hands. When can you start? Austin asked. Today? How does tomorrow sound? Timothy smiled. At last he had a job. Sounds good to me. I'll start you on the basic builder's wage for the first month and then go from there. That suits me just fine. I'll do a good job for you. I want you to know that. Timothy felt like leaping around with joy. Austin wheeled his chair over a few feet, opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a piece of paper. Fill this out. The receptionist, Celia, will give you a pen and you can leave it with her. As Timothy leaned forward to take the piece of paper, Austin said, You'll be reporting here every day at 8 and then we'll send you out. You only have a buggy as transport? That's right, but Samuel said the houses are around the area. That's right. We'll see how things work out, but if you take too much time traveling in the buggy, we'll have to deduct that from your wages. I can work longer hours to make up for it. We'll see how things work out. You have to impress me. I will. I'll work hard. Timothy nodded and looked down at the piece of paper. Then Austin stood and reached out his hand. Good to have you on board. I didn't catch your name. Timothy, sir, Timothy Schroeder. Good to have you on board, Timothy Schroeder. Thank you, Mr. Monty. He raised both hands in the air. Please, it's Austin. Okay. Thank you, Austin. Timothy drove home pleased with himself and very thankful to Samuel. All he wanted to do was stop by and see Tanya to tell her the good news, but he remembered Samuel's warning. Tanya would find out in time, and it might work out better if she heard it from someone other than himself. After he had unhitched the buggy when he got home, he called Samuel from the phone in the barn and thanked him. Chapter 4. As soon as Timothy walked into the house, his younger brothers ran up wanting him to play with them. Just a minute. I'm just going to tell Mom some exciting news. What is it? One of them asked. I'll tell Mom first, alone. Timothy walked into the kitchen with his brothers hanging behind him. Guess what, Mom? She turned around to face him. What is it? Has Dad gone out? Yeah. He shouldn't be too long. Is everything all right? Everything is wonderbar. He couldn't stop smiling. What's going on? I've got a job, and not just any job, a really good job. Samuel Kaufman recommended me, and the man gave me the job immediately. That is exciting. And what kind of job is it? It's what I do, building. Who will you be working for? A real estate agency in town. His mother's lips turned down at the corners. An Englisher? An Englisher that Samuel recommended. They have a lot of rental properties on their books, and they need someone on hand to maintain them, do repairs, odd jobs, and that kind of thing. Abigail walked through the back door holding the hand of her young daughter. The young girl dropped her mother's hand, walked to Timothy, and held onto his leg. He laughed and looked down, and then he picked her up. She giggled, reached out, and pulled on his hat. Good afternoon, Abigail and Ferris, Timothy said. His mother looked over and sniggered. It seems Ferris has more manners than you, Timothy. I tell you all the time not to wear your hat inside. I was waiting for my little helper to do it. He poked Ferris in the ribs and she giggled, and the hat slid from her grasp to land on the timber floorboards. He squatted down to scoop it up, and then stood up very quickly with a jump, and Ferris giggled. He bent his knees and did it again, and she giggled louder. Not in the house, Timothy, his mother said. I'm just trying to have some fun. Mom narrowed her eyes at him. That's for outside. Okay. He placed Ferris down on the floor, and she hurried back to her mother. Can I help you with anything, Abigail? Abigail smiled. I can't think of anything right at this moment. Do let me know, he said, trying to sound as nice as he possibly could. You can help by leaving the kitchen, Timothy, his mother said with laughter ringing in her voice. Okay. He nodded. I know when I'm not wanted. You can tell us all about your job over dinner tonight. Abigail hoisted Ferris onto her hip. You got a job? Yeah, a good one. He hoped Tanya would be just as delighted as Abigail seemed to be. His mother frowned at him. I said, over dinner. I'm going. He turned on his heel and headed outside to see what his brothers were doing. When it came time for dinner, Timothy couldn't wait to tell his father about his job. You didn't think I could get a good job, Dad, but I proved you wrong. Timothy couldn't keep the smile from his face. The boss said my starter wage, which is already good, could go up soon, and it will when the boss sees how good I am. I have faith in you, Timothy, one of his brothers said to him. Thank you, Aiden. You've always believed in me, but it's not so with some of the people in this room. His father adjusted his glasses as he looked at him. We knew you'd get a job, Timothy. We haven't said anything to you about it, because we knew you'd work it out in your own time. Timothy nodded. I guess that's so. I just wanted to be doing something. I hated doing nothing and looking for work and being rejected. It's not a good feeling wanting to work and finding nothing. Even though his parents hadn't nagged him about finding work, he felt the pressure because his 3 next younger brothers had gotten farming work easily. You had excellent training with your 2 uncles, Dad said. I know that, and soon everyone else will too. Timothy chuckled, thinking of all the money he'd be able to save. Then he glanced at Ferris, who had a little plate next to her mother's, but she was still trying to reach for her mother's food. Abigail had to push her own plate further toward the center of the table, to keep it out of Ferris's reach. Then Ferris looked over at him and smiled. He couldn't help smiling back at her. What time do you start, Timothy? His mother asked. I started a bit before 8 beginning on Monday. I report to the main office, and then I'm sent out with a list of the various jobs for the day. If they don't have repair work, they'll still have building work for me. It sounds like you'll have plenty to keep you busy, Abigail said. Mr. Monty says they do. This is the kind of thing I've been hoping for. It'll be interesting, never knowing where I'm going. You've done well to get that job, Timothy, his father said, giving him the nod of approval he'd been waiting for. Thank you, Dad. When everybody had gone to bed that night, Timothy was fixing himself a sandwich in the kitchen when Abigail strolled in from her room. Still hungry? I'm always hungry. I didn't eat much dinner because I was so pleased about getting the job. What are you doing up so late? She adjusted the sides of her prayer cap. I usually wait until Ferris goes to sleep, and then I make myself a cup of hot tea and just relax with it. Your mother told me to help myself to whatever I need. Of course. She smiled at him and reached for the tea kettle. Timothy finished making his sandwich, wondering why Abigail seemed so timid. He pulled out a chair and sat down. A cup of hot tea sounds like a good idea. She placed the kettle onto the lit stovetop. Would you like one as well? Timothy pulled a face. I never drink hot drinks like tea, and I don't like coffee. I mainly just drink water. What about milk? Nope. Fruit juice? He shook his head. Too sweet. Then you really just drink water? Yeah, just plain old water. She sat opposite him. That is unusual. I'm an unusual sort of man. He chuckled. I'm beginning to see that. Is Ferris asleep? Yeah. She is. It didn't take her long. I'll be able to hear her from here if she wakes. I left the door open a little. I'm nervous that her cries are going to upset your brothers or your parents. That'll be fine. She's not going to disturb anyone in this place. I wouldn't worry. Dad hardly ever sleeps. Mom can sleep through a tornado, and the boys, they take after Mom. When the tea kettle boiled, Timothy said, Are you going to join me or take the tea to your room? I'll sit with you if that's okay. I'd like that. She made the tea and then sat down in front of him. You must be very excited about your new job. I doubt I'll be able to sleep tonight. He inhaled deeply, feeling good about himself. It's such a good job, and I only got it because I was highly recommended by Samuel Kaufman. I stayed with Samuel and Mary. He chuckled. I know. They brought you here. Ah, yeah. I forgot. She brought the teacup up to her mouth, and he saw that her cheeks had flushed scarlet. What was it like where you came from? She shook her head and placed her teacup down. I didn't like the place. It was far too small and remote, with very little to do. I like it here because there are so many people in your community, and everyone is so lovely, and they've been so kind to me. We try. Particularly your parents. I hope to be like them one day. You are, aren't you? She asked. I don't know. I see my father like a large oak tree with spreading branches. His family can take shelter in amongst the branches, and he's grown so big that other people come and nestle under his branches, like birds making their home in a tree. That's lovely, Timothy. It's a very poetic thing to say, like a parable. There are a lot of reference in God's word to trees and branches. That's right, there are. Timothy took another bite of his sandwich, hoping she wouldn't ask him where those scriptures were. That's one thing he had to sharpen up on. With nightly scripture readings all his life, he was familiar with all those stories, but couldn't quote chapter and verse like his father could. The righteous flourish like a palm tree, and grow like a cedar of Lebanon. That's in Psalm 92. I know that because that's my favorite psalm. I should have said a cedar tree instead of an oak tree. He chuckled. What's your favorite Bible story? She asked. He swallowed. I don't really have a favorite. You must? He smiled as he remembered one his father had always told them when they were younger, and he hadn't heard it lately. There is this one story Dad used to tell us. The 3 men in the fire. The men wouldn't bow down and worship other gods or idols, so the ruler of the kingdom threw them in the furnace. Not only that, they made sure the fire was so much hotter than usual. They were thrown in the fire, and not only did they stay alive, not a hair of their head was singed. And neither did they have the smell of smoke on their clothes. She smiled. I know the story you mean, it's in Daniel. I like that one too. Their names were Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I even remember their names. She giggled. That story always gives me goosebumps. God performed so many miracles in those days. He looked over at her, impressed that she knew the Bible so well. What's your best story? From the Bible? She asked. Yeah. She looked down into her teacup. I like the one about Moses. Yeah? Which one? Parting the Red Sea. She shook her head. No. He was surprised at how comfortable he was talking to her, and he found it was so easy to be himself. The burning bush? No, wait, I know, the manna from heaven? Abigail giggled. No. When Moses was younger, just a baby. Remember how the order went out that all the baby boys had to be killed, and his mother saved him by putting him in a basket and floating him down the river into the bulrushes? That's right. He was found by the king's daughter and she raised him. He was really starting to like her. Yeah, and then she needed a woman as a nurse for him and ended up with his own mother as his nurse and no one knew anything. Yeah, that's a great story. He took another bite of his sandwich, wondering if everyone could get along easily with Abigail, or was there something special between them? What if something like that happened in real life? He swallowed his mouthful. What, that they'd ordered mass slaughter of children? I don't think that would fly well. Not these days. He laughed. It's just that, oh, it's nothing. You've got to tell me now. You've got me curious. What if someone in this community was pretending a child was theirs that wasn't? She put both hands up to her face. Oh, I've said that all wrong. Like adoption? No. She shook her head. Don't worry. Tell me what you mean. She heaved a sigh. I'm just being silly, and I really shouldn't have said anything. Just forget it. Timothy popped the last piece of the sandwich into his mouth. He had no idea what she was saying, he was just glad they were spending time with one another. She stood suddenly. I might drink the rest of this in my room. Sure. Good knocked. Good knocked, Abigail. It was a sudden exit, and he watched her small frame move through the doorway into her room. Timothy jumped to his feet, rinsed off his plate, and headed to bed hoping his brothers were already asleep. Sometimes they stayed up late talking, and he'd have to scold them to stop. He didn't want another one of those nights, particularly when he wanted to be well rested for his first day at work. Chapter 5. The next morning, Timothy parked his buggy and walked into the office a few minutes before 8. All the members of the office staff were already there by the looks of it, and Celia was behind her desk taking a call. When she was free, Timothy asked to speak to the boss. She said he wasn't in, and then she handed him a list of places to go with the jobs to be completed at each address. There were 7 addresses, each with more than one thing that needed to be done. As he stood reading the list, Celia said, "You have tools?" "I do. We have an account at the hardware store, so you can get what you need from there." "These jobs have already been quoted on?" "Yes, and they've been approved. All you have to do is collect whatever you need from the hardware store and do the jobs. Tell them you work here and have them put it on our account." He frowned. "How will I know what I need if I haven't been the one to look at the job and do the quote?" She stared at him blankly. As Timothy looked at the first job, he wondered aloud, how will this work? Because somebody has obviously quoted on the jobs, and then they knew what materials were needed, but I will have to go to each of these places, assess what's needed, go to get the materials and go back. That will add many more hours onto the day. She shook her head. I don't know. It doesn't seem efficient. I see what you mean. Just do the best you can. I guess in future you'll be the one quoting and it will work out better. He nodded. Okay, just as long as Mr. Monty knows that's why I'll be a bit slower today, and for the next few days until I'm the one looking at the jobs. There's not a list of materials somewhere? She shook her head and offered him the same blank stare, causing him to wonder just how long she'd been working here. Okay. I'll do my best, he said. You'll need the keys. The notice has been given to all the tenants. She handed him a bag full of keys, and then handed him a sheet of paper. This will tell you which key is for which house. Every key is tagged, but we don't put the addresses on the tags in case they're lost. I see. And we close at 5:30, so be back before then, please. Okay. He headed out the door. When he got back to the buggy, he got his map out to plan his journey. He decided to go to the closest ones first because he doubted that he'd be able to finish all the properties on the list, so it was best he do as many as he could. At the end of the day, Timothy had 6 of the 7 jobs done, but it was after 5:30 and when he got to the office it was closed. All he could do was go home and take the keys home with him. There really was no other choice. Tomorrow, he'd talk to his boss and make suggestions on how to make the process much tighter. He hoped the boss would understand why he hadn't completed all the day's tasks. By the time Timothy got home, everyone had eaten and his mother had kept his meal warm for him. He sat eating at the kitchen table while his mother and Abigail cleaned up. Ferris was being entertained by Timothy's brothers in the living room. "How was your first day?" Abigail asked. "Wonderbar. It was so good to be working by myself and making my own decisions about things." He just said the first thing that had rolled off the top of his head. He couldn't tell them his first day was a bit of a disaster, and he feared going in the next day. "I knew it," his mother said. "I could tell by your face you'd had a good day." He'd had to fake a smile before he entered the house. He'd make the job work and make it successful for Austin Monty's business. Samuel had recommended him, and that made it all the more important to be outstanding. "What did you two do today?" Timothy asked, mostly to avoid further questions about his own day. "We cooked and cleaned," Abigail said. "Abigail has been such a help to me. I forgot what it's like to have help. Rebecca used to do a lot before she got too busy delivering babies." "Will she be back in time to deliver Mary's?" Abigail asked. "She thinks she will unless Mary goes early, but we do have another midwife, the one who trained Rebecca." "That's good." "We should visit Mary tomorrow, Abigail," Mom said. "Okay. She has a lot of visitors, I think," Timothy said, trying to discourage them. Samuel had made it sound like he didn't want too many people over at his place. "We'll bake some cakes before we go then," his mother told Abigail. Timothy gave up trying to dissuade them, and continued eating his chicken and asparagus pie. Abigail said, "I have a special cherry and chocolate cake. It's made with mock cream frosting, dark chocolate and black cherries." His mother squealed, "We have canned black cherries." "Perfect." Abigail gave her usual giggle. Mom said, "And I have dark chocolate that I use for cooking. I have to hide it from the boys." Timothy's eyes opened wide and he looked at his mother, and then she shook a finger at him. "You didn't hear that, Timothy." "Shall I make it then?" asked Abigail. Mom nodded. "Yeah, I can't wait to try it." Timothy was pleased, and a little surprised that the 2 women were getting along so well. He didn't mind it so much as long as they didn't enjoy each other's company too much. So much so that Abigail delayed finding her own place. "Will you save me some?" Timothy stared at Abigail. Mom glared at him. "Oh, Timothy. We can't take a full cake minus 1 slice. What would the Kaufmans think of us?" Abigail said, "How about I make 2 cakes? One for here and one for Mary and her guests." "Perfect," Mom said, grinning at Abigail. Timothy nodded. "Thank you, Abigail. My brothers and I love chocolate." "I had no idea you were hiding chocolate from us, Mom. That's just cruelty." "I have to, otherwise there'd be none left." When they laughed, Ferris walked into the kitchen with Joel behind her. "No, Ferris. Your mother is working in the kitchen. She said you have to stay in the living room and play with us." "No," she said, stomping her little feet. "Come on, Ferris." He pulled on her arm and Ferris stopped still and pushed him. Abigail sighed. "She's so determined sometimes." "Thank you, Joel. You've been a great helper, but it's her bedtime now. Come along, Ferris, you can say good night to all the boys and Bishop Elmer." She picked up Ferris despite her protests. "Firstly, say good night to Timothy and Mrs. Schroeder. She can call me Auntie Hannah." "Okay. Say good night to Auntie Hannah and Timothy." Ferris buried her head into her mother's shoulder. "Night," said Timothy. After his mother said good night, Abigail took her daughter into the living room. Timothy swallowed the last mouthful of dinner. "I'd give this pie a 10 out of 10, Mom." Abigail made it. "I thought she might have since we've never had it before." He felt like asking his mother if there was any word of Abigail moving out, but she'd only reprimand him. Surely Samuel and Mary's visitors wouldn't be there that long, and what was to stop Abigail from going back there then? The Kaufman's house was big, and they even had a woman to cook and clean, and a workman to look after their livestock. Chapter 6. Mr. Monty is waiting for you in his office, the receptionist said as soon as Timothy walked into the office. Timothy did his best to appear confident, when inside he was so nervous his stomach churned. Good, because I need to talk to him about a few things. He handed over the bundle of keys. Here are the keys. I had to take them home with me last night. Her eyebrows rose. Mr. Monty won't like that. You were supposed to be here for close of day. All the keys need to be safely locked up. Well, I'm sorry. It won't happen again. He headed to Mr. Monty's office. How did you do with everything yesterday, Timothy? Mr. Monty asked as he gestured for Timothy to take a seat in front of him. I completed 6 of the tasks. There were a few problems. Timothy sat and explained what the problems were. If Mr. Monty was an understanding man, he'd see the obvious solutions. It's not going to work out for you. Is that what you're saying? Timothy shook his head. Not at all. I just think it needs a little more organization if you want me to finish so many jobs in the time you've given me. I had to travel back to the hardware store once I assessed each of the jobs. Somebody had done the quoting, but there was no information about what materials were needed. Do you see the problem? Yes, the person who had the job before you did the quoting. I thought I was the first person you employed for this kind of thing. You are the first full-time man. We had various people quoting on the jobs on an individual basis. And you're right, you're the first person we've tried out full-time. What the key problem is regarding yesterday is that I'm not a mind reader to know what's needed with the jobs. If I had been to all these jobs previously and had been prepared with the proper materials, all the jobs would have been completed, I'd say. Do you see where I'm coming from? I think you know what's missing here, Timothy, and it's not about never having quoted on the jobs. What do you mean? I know we've thrown you in at the deep end on this, but you could have done it all if you'd had a car. He shook his head. I didn't think this through. I was pleased when you mentioned the name Samuel Kaufman, and after I saw you he confirmed that he had sent you, so I felt better about my sudden decision to employ you. Timothy squirmed in his seat and opened his mouth to speak, but Mr. Monty held his hand in the air to silence him before he had the chance to utter a word. The thing is, I think I'm better served to have somebody with a car, and I know you're right about what you're saying, but at the same time you could have done it all if you'd had a car. He nodded, expecting Timothy to agree with him. I'll be up to doing what you expect if I work faster, and I'd be able to do that when things are more organized. When I'm the one quoting the jobs. This is as organized as it gets around here. You've got to be able to roll with the punches and do things at the last minute, and you can't do that if you don't have a car. Timothy shrugged his shoulders. Obviously, I can't get a car. I'm not asking you to, but it makes sense for me to employ someone with a car. I'm sorry this didn't work out, Timothy. Timothy was horrified. Only one day on the job and he was being fired? You mean that's it? I'm afraid so. You'll be paid to the end of the week, of course. Celia has a check waiting for you at her desk. Thank you and goodbye, mister. It's Schroeder. Look, can't you give me a few more days at least to prove myself? If you're paying me until the end of the week, why don't I work until the end of the week? I like your attitude, but my mind's made up. If you'll excuse me, I've got a ton of work waiting. Mr. Monty stood and extended his hand. No hard feelings? Timothy stood up and shook his hand. He couldn't even answer. When he collected his check, he would head to the bank to cash it. How was he going to tell his family? He'd been so pleased and he'd said all those things to his father. Now he felt like a complete failure. Please reconsider, Mr. Monty. Can I just explain to you that there are only so many hours of daylight? If I've got one job across one side of town and then one on the other, it'd take you too long. I'll make up for that by doing a good job while still working fast. Another person would take twice the time I do. I'm fast and efficient as well as thorough. Timothy even considered offering to work for less money, but then Mr. Monty spoke again. I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate you trying to fight for your job, but my mind's made up and I've already employed your replacement. Timothy stood there crushed. He'd have to swallow his pride and tell his family he'd lost it just as quickly as he'd found it. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Monty. No harm done? Timothy nodded. It's okay. See Celia at reception and collect your check. He wasn't going to say no to the money if it was being offered. I appreciate that. Chapter 7. 20 minutes later, Timothy had cashed his check and walked out of the bank with a wallet full of money. Once again, he was out of a job and feeling down. He'd made such a deal about his job, and now he'd have to tell everyone he'd lost it. No. He couldn't do it. He couldn't face telling them, not right away. The only thing he could do was get another job fast, and that way it would look like he'd upgraded to an even better job. The last thing he wanted to do was farm work like his brothers, but if nothing turned up soon he might have to. He'd run out of places to ask for employment, so he spent the rest of the day checking back with the places he'd already asked. Once he'd been to 3 places and gotten another 3 rejections, totaling 4 for the day including his original job, he decided to call it a day. He couldn't go home until dark though. Instead he looked in the offices of real estate agencies for houses for Abigail, and then set about gathering addresses of properties for sale. It would cheer him up to have his own room, and maybe he'd have to work on a farm like his brothers until he found building work. If he had Rebecca's old room, things wouldn't seem so bad. Timothy made it home around the time he normally had expected to arrive from Mr. Monty's job. Instead of talking about his day over dinner, he turned the conversation around to Abigail's house hunting. While I was out today, I had a little time left over, and I compiled a list of properties for sale for you, Abigail. Her pretty face lit up on hearing the news. Thank you, Timothy. That was nice of you. Timothy chuckled. I have a little time the day after tomorrow between jobs, and I could drive you past some of them. I'd like that a lot. Are you sure you can spare the time? His father stared at him. I can between jobs, Dad. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Tomorrow I'm too busy to turn around, but the next day is easier. How do you like your job? One of his brothers asked. Good. It was a little difficult because someone else had done the quoting, and I had to do that again because there were no notes on what materials were needed. It all worked in the end. He didn't like the way his father was staring at him, and then he realized he'd repeated what had happened the day before. His father looked like he knew something wasn't right, and he was trying to figure it out. A change of subject was needed. Mom, did you visit the Kaufmans today? Yeah. We did, and we had a lovely time. Timothy, are you only asking because you want to know if there's any chocolate cake left? Abigail asked, which made everyone laugh. That's right. Timothy joined in the fun. Is there? I made 2 like I said I would, and we have 1 for dessert. He and the other boys made sounds of approval, until their father hushed them. Wait until you taste it, Mom said. Abigail has given me the recipe, and we'll have it again. Not too soon because it is a complicated recipe. It came down from my great-grossmammy, Abigail said. She was from the old country. She was always telling me stories about the food, when she taught me how to make everything. She must have been quite old, Timothy said. Abigail giggled. I never knew my great-grossmammy. I should have said it was my grossmammy that taught me the recipes from her mother. I'll have to be sure of what I'm saying around you, Timothy. No, you won't. Don't mind him, Abigail. He was always very precise with details. I guess that's what makes him a good builder, with taking proper measurements, Mom said. Abigail leaned back in her chair. Cooking's like that too. No, building's much harder, Timothy said. Cooking's easy, that's why women do it. After Abigail gasped, the bishop said, It's not a competition, you two. Every task has its own traits, and every task we all do is worthy in the sight of God. Abigail's fiery gaze locked onto Timothy. We might have to talk about what you said, but let's save it until later, Timothy. It's just that men are suited to some things and women are suited to others. The bishop shook his head. Timothy, no more talk about such things at the table. People choose to do different jobs, each one just as important, and each person has their own skills. Timothy looked over at his father in surprise. It sounded as though he was defending the words of a stranger, rather than agreeing with his own son. Yeah, we'll talk about this later, Abigail. Looking forward to it. Hannah shook her head. Make sure I'm not around to listen, would you? The younger boys chuckled, and the bishop changed the subject. It was after dinner, and after everyone else had gone to bed, that Timothy and Abigail took up the conversation again. Abigail was sitting with a cup of hot tea, while Timothy, still hungry, had made himself a cheese sandwich. So are you saying that men are more skilled? Abigail asked him. That was a hard one to answer, and she was trying to trap him on a technicality, so he had to beat her at her own game. Not at all. I'm just saying women are good at some things and men are good at other things. Take my sister Rebecca, for example. She's a midwife. I'd say she'd be better at it than a man, even though there are male doctors who deliver babies. Undoubtedly women are better at that. They have empathy and instincts about birth and such things. I don't think a man, even with proper training, could do as good a job with that as a woman. There we agree. We do. Finally, we agree on something, but what about building work? I'm sure a woman could be as good as a man with the same level of training. He chuckled, not wanting to get into an argument with her. Shall we agree to disagree? What? That means you don't think a woman with the same training can do as well at the same work as a man? She asked him. I've agreed with you about women being better as baby nurses and midwives, but you don't agree with me about men being better builders. She held her chin high. That's right. He shook his head. You have differing standards then. Can't you see you're not being logical? Oh, because women by nature aren't logical? No, I'd never say that. A woman has to be logical to run a household and look after children and such things. She took a sip of tea. We're possibly talking about two different things. Maybe. He didn't see it, but agreed just to keep her happy. Anyway, how about I collect you at 11 the day after tomorrow and I'll drive you past those houses? I'd love that. I haven't wanted to ask anyone for help. I was going to borrow a buggy and see what was for sale by myself. You can tell me what you know about the different areas. I can do that. Thank you, Timothy. She gave him a big smile, and he forgot about their disagreement. He went to bed that night feeling awful about deceiving his family, but he couldn't think about seeing their disappointed faces if he told them he'd lost his job. It was unheard of to lose a job on the second day of employment. Chapter 8. Timothy left the house at the same time as he had the day before. Until he found another job, he had to make everyone think he was still working. After going to the library and looking in the newspaper for jobs, he needed to see Tanya. There were no jobs he liked the sound of, and seeing Tanya would make him feel better. That meant he had to ignore Samuel's advice about not appearing too eager. He walked to his usual table at the back of the cafe and waited for Tanya to approach him. When he opened the menu, he looked up and saw her standing behind the large coffee machine. Before Tanya even looked up at him, Abigail walked through the door. His heart sank. How did she find me and why is she here? Had his parents discovered his secret already? Abigail looked at him and headed right for him. He had to be able to keep up his pretense, and he decided to tell her he was having his lunch between jobs. Hey you? He took a deep breath. I'm just having a quick bite to eat before my next job. What are you doing here? Looking for you. He held his breath, hoping she didn't know what was going on. Without being asked, she pulled out the chair opposite him and sat down. I went to a realtor and they just don't listen to a woman. I need a man to negotiate me a good deal. I was so upset about the awful realtor and how he treated me that I went to look for you at your work. They told me you don't work there anymore. He looked away from her, completely embarrassed. How are you getting about? Your mother allowed me to use one of the buggies. Oh, and where's Ferris? With your mom. She was asleep and Hannah said to leave her be. Timothy, what's going on with you? He swallowed his pride under the gaze of her piercing blue eyes. I lost the job. He gauged her reaction, and it was one of shock with a touch of disappointment. The boss assured me it wasn't my workmanship, it was just that I didn't have as much work completed as he thought I'd have, to justify my wage. And the buggy's too slow. He employed someone with a car. I am sorry to hear that, but why have you been pretending you still have the job, sneaking about deceiving everyone? Her remarks made him feel 10 times worse. I was a little bit embarrassed after I told my family how good a job it was. Now I feel like a real fool. She nodded. I can see that. I understand completely why you did it. Do you? She nodded again. That makes me feel so much better, he said. Where will you go tomorrow? I don't know, but I'm not ready to tell them for a while. Will you keep the information to yourself? Of course I will. Who would I tell? He shrugged. My family. She giggled. I wouldn't do that. Tanya walked over to them, looking from one to the other, and Timothy knew exactly what she was thinking. She wondered if there was something between the two of them, and whether they were more than just friends. He couldn't have Tanya thinking anything like that. He had to convey the message loud and clear that Abigail was just a friend. Tanya, have you met Abigail Walton? She's staying with us. No, I haven't, but I heard you were moving here. Nice to meet you, Abigail. I'm Tanya Miller. Ah, yeah, Tanya Miller, Timothy mumbled, disappointed he'd done a poor job of the introductions. He was never quite sure how to introduce people properly, or who should be introduced to whom first. Abigail smiled at her. Hello, Tanya. Pleased to meet you. Tanya looked back at Timothy. Are you having lunch today, or just another coffee? He frowned, taking hold of the menu. He never drank coffee. She'd confused him with someone else, and that told him she wasn't that interested in him. I think we'll be eating, and we'll need another couple of moments to look at the menu. Abigail opened the other menu on the table, when Tanya left them alone. I suppose I should eat something. Please do. My treat. Abigail shook her head. No, this is my treat today since you. I won't hear of it. Okay, thank you. She gave a girlish giggle. After she'd read the menu, she finally made her choice. Vegetable soup with toasted flatbread. I'll have the same. He closed his menu and signaled to Tanya that they were ready. Once they'd ordered, Abigail asked, So, what's your plan to hide this from your parents? I'm hunting for another job, but until I get one, I'll have to keep leaving early in the morning and coming home at the same time to make it look real. You haven't found it within yourself to come clean with your family and confess? Now he felt bad. No to the confession. It's not as though I'm doing anything bad. She sighed. I think you should tell them. I will soon, but not just yet. I've got to work up to it. She leaned forward and whispered, What's it worth for me to keep quiet? He stared into her blue eyes. What do you mean? I did want to buy some new shoes for me and some for Ferris. Would you drive us? Of course I will. She giggled and said in a playful manner, And what else will you do to buy my silence? Wait a minute. Are you trying to bribe me? That's a little harsh, but I guess, if that's what you want to call it, then yeah. Then later on tonight I'll need my shoes cleaned. I'll leave them at my door. His mouth fell open in shock. You want me to clean your shoes and in exchange you'll keep quiet that I lost my job? She smiled sweetly and nodded. Now he knew she had no principles whatsoever, but he wasn't ready to break the job news to his family just yet. What he needed to do was find another job fast. He looked into Abigail's eyes. Okay, I'll do it. He wasn't about to test her. If she did tell his parents, he might never get that room. Good. You wait in the buggy when we get to the house, and I'll fetch Ferris. No. Wait a minute. I'll have to drive the buggy home and then you collect me. That might not work because I told my folks I had a busy day today, and tomorrow was lighter. It would work if I took you to look at houses tomorrow, and then we did the shoes at the same time. I guess that would work. Fine. He was trapped in his lies, and now he was seeing a different side of Abigail. His parents would be shocked, but would they be more shocked at her or at him? Ready? Tanya was back to take their order. He gave Tanya a big smile. 2 soups please with toasted flatbread. And to drink? I'll just have a white coffee please, Abigail said. Timothy? Tanya asked, smiling at him a little more than usual. Timothy wondered whether a little competition might have been a good thing. If Tanya thought another woman was interested in him, it might make her see him in a different light. Just water, thanks. Coming right up. When she walked away, Abigail said, She seems like a nice girl. Does she? I haven't really noticed. He looked back at Abigail. Are you bribing me because you're annoyed about our discussion last night? She laughed. Let's not start on that again. No, I'd rather not. I want to look at as many houses as possible. Will you organize that for me? I'll be happy to do that. As soon as we finish here, I'll arrange for us to see some tomorrow. Thank you. I'd appreciate it. Then when you get home, don't forget to polish my shoes. Really? Are you going to continually bribe me? Maybe. She shrugged her shoulders. I just hate cleaning shoes. My husband always did that for me. Timothy didn't know what to say, and was pleased they were interrupted by Tanya bringing their drinks to the table. The soup won't be long. Timothy hoped Abigail left first, so he could subtly let Tanya know he had no interest in Abigail. When she brought their soup to the table, he considered letting her know that he'd just run into Abigail. He zipped his lips, remembering Samuel's words, and hoped a little mystery and something that resembled competition might work in his favor. Something had to go his way sometime soon. While they ate their soup, he did his best to keep the conversation on neutral topics. He didn't want to get into another argument, or for her to find different jobs for him to do. Cleaning her shoes was bad enough. He didn't mind taking her to look at houses, because he would have gladly done that anyway, and he might have even cleaned her shoes if she'd asked nicely. When they finished eating, they both walked out of the cafe at the same time. Timothy left an extra-large tip for Tanya. That made her smile. Chapter 9. Timothy was pleased he had something to do with his afternoon. He successfully lined up properties for Abigail to view the next day. Once he arrived home, he headed over to get Abigail's shoes. Like she'd said, they were waiting for him by the door, but she'd neglected to inform him they were covered in mud. Now he had even more reason to get Abigail away from him, and get her out of his room. The woman was unbelievable, and not in a good way. As he polished her shoes, he remembered again what Samuel Kaufman advised, and that was to befriend Abigail. That was a difficult thing to do, seeing she was bribing him, and had openly admitted to it. He couldn't let on what he thought about how she was treating him. He took her shoes back to her and showed them to her for approval. And then he gave her a big smile. Is there anything else you'd like me to do? No, but everyone is waiting inside for you at the table. He hit his head. I completely forgot the time. Your mom saw the buggy. I've only come to my room because Ferris has just woken. Oh? Well, what do you think of the shoes? She took them from his outstretched hands. They look good? Thank you. Hurry now. I should have told you. I volunteered to fetch you and tell you everyone was waiting, but I forgot. Okay, I'm going. He headed to the front door. By the time he got to the dinner table, Abigail had just sat down with Ferris on her lap. What took you so long, Timothy? His mother asked. Sorry, I honestly didn't realize the time. I've had such a busy day rushing here and there. Let us give thanks for the food before us, the bishop said. Everyone closed their eyes to say their own silent prayers. When everyone opened their eyes, the bowls of food were passed around with the exception of the younger boys, who sat at the children's table with food already on their plates. That evening Timothy and Abigail were the last to go to bed, and they sat in the kitchen talking just as they'd done the previous night. Timothy was determined to beat Abigail at her own game. He'd win her over, find her a house and get her out of his bedroom and out of his life. What time will you fetch me tomorrow? Around 10:30. I can hardly wait, I'm so excited. Don't be late. I won't be. How about we have some lunch while we're out? My treat. Timothy offered. Yeah, I'd like that very much. We'll go back to the same place. I liked it there. We'll go to a different place, Timothy said firmly. It's not nice there. It's really only a cafe. I'd like to take you to someplace nicer. No, I like that place, and there was something on the menu that I thought I'd like to try. Perfect. He cleared his throat. I also like it, but I thought you'd like to try somewhere different. He took a bite of his sandwich. Not only had she taken his room, now he was at risk of her ruining things with Tanya. The next day when they pulled up at the first house, he asked, "What do you think of it?" "I guess it looks okay from the front, and I can see how I can improve it. Would you get Ferris out for me?" Sure. He didn't know whether that was part of him being a slave, or she just expected him to get the child out of the buggy. He reached out his hands for Ferris. She smiled and leaned forward to him. He hoped Abigail wouldn't ruin Ferris and make her conniving like she was. Ferris was a sweet-natured child and always happy. When they walked side by side toward the waiting realtor at the front door, Abigail turned to Timothy. "You don't have to carry her. She can walk." "Okay." He placed Ferris's feet on the ground and she squealed and reached her arms up to him. "Looks like I'm carrying her." "Please yourself." Just as they stepped onto the porch, the middle-aged realtor smiled at them. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Schroeder." Abigail burst out laughing. "I'm Abigail Walton, and this is Timothy Schroeder. We're not married." "No, we definitely are not," Timothy said. "And this delightful young lady here is Ferris, Abigail's daughter." "Very good. Now, are you ready to see the house?" The realtor stepped aside and flung the door open wide. "After you," Timothy said to Abigail. Abigail walked into the middle of the living room and spun around. It's very dark. The windows are really very small. About the same size as all the other windows around the place, Timothy said. They look fine to me. It has a delightful kitchen with a wood-burning stove. Come this way. The realtor hurried past them, and when Abigail followed him into the kitchen, she turned up her nose. Your family's house is fairly small too, Timothy, but it has a kitchen 3 times this size. This is way too tiny. Timothy said, maybe I could expand it. What's behind this wall? He asked the realtor. A small dining room. Perfect. I could knock this wall out and put in more countertop and cupboards, and even another sink if you want. That would open the place right up. That would be good, I suppose. Timothy said, I can even put more windows in or make these ones bigger. I also have a good friend who's a glazier. She slowly nodded and then asked the realtor, how many bedrooms? 3. I'll show you. They followed the realtor through the house, and when they arrived back at the front door, he asked Abigail, what do you think about the house? She shook her head. It won't do. Why not? Timothy asked. Because it's simply not right. There are 2 big bedrooms and 1 small bedroom, and that creates a problem. And what problem is that? Timothy asked. If I give Ferris the small room and leave the big ones for guests, it seems impractical. If I give her the large bedroom, and I have the smaller bedroom for guests, that will be impractical as well. I have a house up the road that has a bigger kitchen with 3 even-sized bedrooms. I think you'll like that one better, Abigail. It's a little more money, but it's still in the range of what you mentioned yesterday, Timothy. Yeah, show me that one, please. When can we see it? Timothy asked. The realtor patted his hip pocket. I have the keys with me because it's vacant right now. Was that on our list to see? Timothy asked. That's right. We had this down to see next. That would be good, wouldn't it, Abigail? Abigail didn't look happy. Instead, she glared at the realtor and took a step forward. Is that your plan? To show us the worst property and then try to upsell me to the bigger one? Because if that's what you're trying to do, it won't work with me. No, that's not what I was doing at all. Timothy asked to look at this house first. Yes, that's right. I asked him to show us this one, Abigail. I thought it would suit you. She looked back at the realtor. Very well, what are you waiting for? Then she walked past him to the waiting buggy. "Sorry about that," Timothy whispered. "I'll meet you at the other house. It's at the end of this road, 3 miles up on your left just before the T intersection. It's a blue house. And good luck," the realtor said with a flicker of his eyebrows. Timothy smiled and gave him a nod, knowing he meant good luck with Abigail. She wasn't the easiest person to get along with by any means, and he wasn't the only one who thought so. By the time Timothy got to the buggy, Abigail was already waiting in the passenger side and ready to go. He put Ferris into her seat, and then climbed into the buggy beside Abigail and took up the reins. They looked through another 3 places, all of them not suitable to Abigail. Then they only had one more lined up to look at that day. "Isn't this fun?" Abigail said. "I love looking at houses." As he moved the horse onto the road, he glanced over at her. "It didn't look like you were having fun. It's just disappointing when things aren't what you have in mind. We'll find the right one. Trust me." Abigail shook her head. "I never trust anyone who says, 'Trust me.'" "I take it back then. Don't trust me, do trust me, whatever." He gave her a big smile, determined not to let her get him down. When they reached the next house, Timothy secured the buggy. "This one looks a lot better," Abigail said, staring at it. "Good. Maybe this is the one." "Maybe." She took a sleepy Ferris out of the buggy. "Let me take her. She must be heavy." "Thank you." He took hold of Ferris, and she nestled her head into his shoulder and closed her eyes. A wave of emotion made him hold his breath for a moment. He put his hand on her back, hoping he'd have a daughter one day just as adorable. When Abigail walked closer to the house, she looked at the waiting realtor. "Is this the front of the house or the back?" "This is the front," the realtor assured her. "What do you mean?" Timothy asked Abigail, thinking it was obviously the front. "The porch and the front door of the property should look out over the land, or onto the road. This front door is at the back of the property. It just seems odd, that's all." "You can look out at the lovely trees while you sit here," Timothy said. She scoffed. "I would rather see who's coming up the road. I suppose we'll have a look through the place now that we're here." As the realtor unlocked the front door, Timothy said, "Just remember, I can reconfigure the house and build a porch on the front if you want." I mean the back, and then it'll become the front." "I appreciate it, Timothy, but I'd much prefer to find a house that was just a normal average house without the quirks. No, I won't look inside. No matter how good it is, it just bothers me now." She stared at the realtor. "I think you have an idea of what I'm looking for now. Do you have anything like that in or around this area?" The realtor shook his head. "Not at the moment, I don't. Some of the other agencies might have something on their books, but we can't show you those. We're not a multi-list agency. These are the only ones we have." "Thank you anyway. I'm sorry to waste your time. Goodbye." She took Ferris from Timothy's arms and walked back to the buggy. "Wait. Just have a look inside since we're here, Abigail," Timothy said. She sighed and walked back. "Very well." As they looked through, Abigail made no secret of how horrible she thought the place was. She picked on everything, and had nothing good to say about anything. "Thank you for the time, and I'm sorry," Timothy said to the realtor as Abigail made her way to the buggy carrying Ferris. "Not a problem," he said, looking a little glum. Chapter 10. Once the buggy was back on the road, Timothy said, "Sorry those places weren't suitable. I'll make some more calls and see what else I can find." "Thank you, Timothy. I appreciate you helping me with everything. Bishop Elmer and Hannah are too busy, and I don't really know anyone else that has time to drive me about. So I do appreciate you." This was a side of her he hadn't seen. She was acting sweet and even normal. Then she swiveled about, looking around them. "Isn't town back that way?" "That's right." "What about our lunch?" He had hoped she'd forget, because he really didn't want to take her back to where Tanya worked. That's right. I'll turn around just up here." She giggled. "Did you forget?" He nodded. "No, you didn't. You just hoped that I forgot, but I never forget anything." "Good to know." I know a spot down by the river. Ferris would love it. I could get us some takeout burgers, and we could sit down by the river. And I'm sure Ferris would love to feed the ducks. No, Timothy. You said you'd take me back to where Tanya works. I saw something on the menu I wanted to try. Very well. He was certain he'd never said he'd take her back to that cafe. But he knew there was no use protesting. If he protested too much, she would wonder why he was against going. The last thing he wanted her to know was that he liked Tanya. By the time they pulled up in town, Ferris was awake, and Timothy was pleased that Ferris wanted to stay with her mother. It wouldn't look good if he walked in holding Abigail's child. The realtor had thought they were married, and he didn't want to look like a cozy couple in front of Tanya. He needn't have worried. Tanya wasn't working, he saw as they entered the cafe. After they'd ordered, Abigail said, "Now, there's a little matter I have to discuss with you." "What's that?" Timothy asked. He didn't believe it was going to be a little matter at all. "Hannah said she wouldn't be back until late. I said I'd watch your brothers and cook the dinner." "Tonight?" "This afternoon." He wondered why she was telling him. "That was very nice of you." "Yeah, but I'm rather tired now after looking at all those dreadful houses." "Really? Looking at houses made you tired?" She giggled. "I thought we'd have more to look at. Anyway, I was thinking you could cook the meal." "You're bribing me to cook the meal, and if I don't, you'll tell everyone I got fired?" "Yeah." He couldn't believe she had no shame. Everyone else thought she was so sweet. Around his mother, she certainly acted that way. "What if I say no? What if I tell your parents you lost your job before you had even begun?" He huffed. "Okay, I'll do it. But I can't guarantee what the meal will be like." "Did she give you any idea of what to cook?" "She has the roast ready for the oven, and the vegetables have to be peeled and sliced, and then placed in the oven half an hour before the roast is finished." "That sounds too hard to figure all that out. How would I know how long a roast takes to cook? And what speed do I put the oven onto?" Abigail giggled. "Oh, Timothy, you make me laugh. It's not a speed, it's a temperature. And you put it in a moderate oven. And you have to do a good job of it, because it must look like I've done it." He shook his head and looked into her eyes. "Are you going to be that deceptive?" She leaned across the table, tipped her head a bit and stared into his eyes. "Are you going to be that deceptive?" He leaned back, not knowing what to say. She was right. He was being deceptive to his parents. She added, with her nose screwed up, "I didn't come to stay with your family, to look after 16 children. There aren't 16. There are only 11, not counting me, now that Rebecca's left." They ate their lunch in silence. On the way out of the cafe, Timothy said, "There's a real estate office up here. Let's look in the windows for properties for sale." "Okay. I'd like that. I want to get into my own home as soon as possible." Timothy was thrilled to hear it. "We'll miss you when you go." "Well, I don't know if that's true. You might miss Ferris, but you'll be pleased to see the back of me." While they were looking in the window, one of the staff came out to see them. "Looking to buy?" "Yes, I am," she said. "Do you have anything close to the Amish communities, without too much land?" "I have this one here." He pointed to a picture. Abigail leaned down to have a closer look. "It's a little old. It's nice inside." "When can we have a look at it?" Timothy asked. "Tomorrow morning." "What time tomorrow morning?" Timothy asked. "What time would suit you?" "About 10, Abigail said. The realtor smiled. "I'll meet you there at 10. Come inside and I'll give you a brochure with the address." Chapter 11. When they arrived home, Abigail announced she was going to have a little nap along with Ferris. Then she reminded him to do the jobs that she'd told Hannah she would do, look after the children and cook the dinner. Timothy wasn't worried about looking after the children. Each of them knew what to do, and they each had after-school chores. What he was worried about was being able to cook to a certain standard. A standard where his mother would think Abigail had cooked it. He walked to Abigail's door with her, which was just outside the kitchen door. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know if I'm going to do this. Of course you can. All you have to do is cut the vegetables and put them in the oven at the right time. What could be more simple? I don't know how to cut them. And I don't know how to set the oven or when to start the roast or. Abigail sighed. I'll put Ferris down for her nap and I'll come tell you what needs to be done. He headed into the bathroom and washed his hands. His two youngest brothers had gone with his mother, the older ones wouldn't finish work for some time, and the others would soon return from school. Timothy sat down feeling helpless, and then Abigail walked in, looked at him, and placed her hands on her hips. It would be terrible if my mother knew I was doing this for you, and pretended it was you. Yeah, that's true. I would help a little more, but I have to watch over Ferris. If she wakes, she will be heard because the walls are so thin. You've left her there by herself before. When it suits you, he felt like saying, but didn't. I suppose I could help. He nodded. You could, but will you? She groaned. Very well. Although I'd much rather sleep. I'm not getting much sleep here. She gathered the vegetables and placed them on the countertop. Come here. When Timothy walked over, she said, you see, it's all about cutting them nicely and into consistent sizes. Show me how. Timothy, you're not that helpless and hopeless, are you? I'm afraid I am. Mom doesn't ever have us boys help with cooking, so I've never learned. She shook her head and pulled out a cutting board and knife. Then she began to show him how to peel the carrots. Ouch, I'm sure I'd cut my thumb. How do you do that? Practice, that's all. Practice makes perfect. He crinkled his nose. He didn't want to do any practice, and he really didn't want to be perfect at it. I dunno. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. He scratched his forehead while staring at her cutting action. Then you slice them. You do it so well, Abigail. It'd take me forever. She sighed. I might as well just do it all myself. I'm nearly done anyway. That suits me. You don't seem very sorry you're making me do it all, she said. My mother did ask you to do it. You're right. And she has been lovely. She reminds me of my own mother. Timothy sat down in a kitchen chair. Do you miss your mother? I haven't had time to miss her. There's been so much going on since I arrived. You have been busy. Busy giving me a hard time, he said. She shook her head. You're the one who's responsible for that, because you're not being honest with your family. He folded his arms over his chest. Are you punishing me, or are you taking advantage of me by getting me to do things? I haven't figured that out yet. She held up the knife. It's not working out too well for me, is it? I'm the one doing this when you were supposed to do it. He chuckled. I cleaned your shoes yesterday. Anyway, this cooking thing was a bad idea. Mom would know I did it, and it would have been awful if she'd found out what you'd done. She would be upset with you over it. He wondered whether all women were this devious, but his sister and his mother weren't like Abigail. Yeah, and then it might come out about you losing your job. She raised her eyebrows. Ouch. True. He nodded. I'll tell everyone in time. Do you think you'll find what you're looking for here in Pleasant Valley? Oh, I think I will. I'm used to getting what I want. God blesses me so much. He didn't say anything, just thought it was more to do with her good looks and her attitude rather than blessings from above. How could God bless a dishonest person who saw nothing wrong with bribing someone? Sooner or later her ways would catch her out, he thought. I'll do something else to make up for it. How about that? Instead of doing the cooking, she asked. Yeah, I'll show you some more houses. Humph. A realtor could do that for me. That's not exactly making up for anything. He rubbed his chin. It seems to me that now I'm keeping your secret. What? I have no secrets. Yeah, you do. Having me cook the meal when Mom asked you to do it, and look after the boys. She shook her head. Looks like I'm cooking now, doesn't it? He laughed. I guess so. You have a nice way with people. She smiled and looked up at him. Do I? Yeah, no wonder you get what you want. We get along well, you and I, Timothy. Oh, is that what we're doing? He asked. Abigail continued to cut the carrots. Yeah. You're one of the nicest men I've met since I have been here. I shall take that as a compliment, he said. Even though you've only been here a few days. He chuckled, but her words had made him feel better about himself. She placed the knife down and used both hands to put the chopped carrots into a roasting pan. It was meant as a compliment. You are a nice man. Thank you, and I hope you find what you're looking for. She looked across at him. Timothy, you already said that. What point are you trying to make? If you're trying to say something to me in a roundabout way, just blurt it out. I'm not good at taking hints or picking up on people's feelings. I just wonder about you, that's all. You're young and beautiful. You could have any man you wanted, but you married someone older with grown-up children, and I gather you didn't love him. He shook his head. It just doesn't make sense to me. I already told you about that. I wanted to get out of where I was. He was my ticket to the world, but then he changed his mind and didn't want to leave. She placed her hands on her hips. I think he was just telling me what I wanted to hear. Anyway, I learned that marriage is a compromise. I had to compromise. I wonder if it's the women who do all the compromising. He couldn't help chuckling. I find that hard to believe. Rather than his comment offending her, she nodded. It seems odd, I agree, and looking back now I would have done things differently. Go on. What would you have done if we could turn back the clock right now? I would have left, as you said. Gone away, gone to visit relatives or friends of my parents in other communities. I would have forced myself to be brave and have more confidence. I'm very shy, you know. Timothy frowned at her. I see you as anything but shy. Really? Maybe I've changed. It was hard losing my husband and having my daughter to care for on my own. I wouldn't change anything now because I have Ferris. And I did grow to love my husband, but it was a different kind of love from the one that I thought I might ideally find with someone. She shrugged her shoulders. What's done is done. You grew to love him after you were married? Yeah. Abigail pulled out the potatoes from the dark cupboard where they'd been stored. I loved him kind of like family. That's what he was, part of my family. The mood had turned serious now. Having a child and losing a husband was nothing to laugh about. It must be hard for you being on your own now. It's a brave move coming here with no one you know. It is very hard, especially when people don't understand. She set down the knife and the potato she was holding, while a single tear trickled down her cheek. In that moment his heart broke for her. Now he knew her tough exterior and manipulating ways were part of the shell she put up to protect her softness. He wanted to take her in his arms and look after her. Don't cry, Abigail. He tried to inject comfort into his voice, because he couldn't put his arms around her. He wasn't used to women, and if someone came in the room, things would be misinterpreted. She turned aside from him and sobbed with her hands covering her face. No one likes me here. It's okay, Abigail. I like you. He quickly stood up and instinctively moved to put a hand on her shoulder. Please don't cry. Everything will be much better soon. You'll get a new house, you'll find another husband, and you will have a perfect life, a wonderbar life. She suddenly turned around and laughed in his face. I'm only pretending. I got you, didn't I? Chapter 12. Timothy stepped back in horror at how cold-hearted Abigail was, while her laughter rang in his ears. That's nothing to be proud of. I genuinely felt sorry for you. Don't you have any feelings at all? He shook his head at her as the laughter intensified. I was just starting to like you. Disgusted in her, Timothy walked out of the kitchen and sat by himself on the porch. His brothers had arrived home and had started their chores. The older ones were feeding the larger animals and cleaning out the stables, while the younger ones were feeding the smaller animals. Just as he'd succeeded in pushing the scene with Abigail out of his mind, he sensed someone standing beside him. It was Abigail. He sighed. He just wanted to be alone, and he was too polite to tell her to go away since she was a guest. I'm sorry, Timothy. I don't know what gets into me sometimes. He looked up at her. Apology accepted. He knew he had to accept apologies. He wasn't the judge of whether she was sincere or insincere. I can't help it. I just like teasing people. She crouched down beside him. He couldn't look at her, and his eyes were fixed onto the barn in front of them. I thought we were having a moment, he said. You said you liked me, she replied. I do like you as a friend. I know you wouldn't be interested in someone like me as anything other than a friend. Even with her wicked ways, there was something nice about her. Something that made him want to be around her and do things for her. That's true, but could you come back and help me with the vegetables? If I promised to be nice? He looked over at her and couldn't help smiling. You don't have to promise. You don't have to promise anything, just say it and I will believe you. Come back and help me please, Timothy? I'm not used to cooking for so many, and I'm not sure how many vegetables to chop. It'll get tedious after a while, and I don't want to be bored. Timothy sighed. Who wouldn't want to keep a beautiful woman company? Sure, I'll come back, but I don't think I'll be much of a help. I've never had anything to do with the cooking, and have never noticed how much other people eat. I've only ever been interested in how much I can eat. She giggled. Typical man. He jumped to his feet. I guess that's what I am. When his mother came home, she was totally unaware that Timothy had been there earlier than he should have. His father arrived home about the same time as his mother. The next day, Timothy and Abigail viewed the property they'd lined up with the different realtor, and he showed them a few more. Abigail found fault with each one. There wasn't an endless supply of houses to choose from, so she'd have to make up her mind between the ones available. Abigail had said that each house was either too small, too large, or positioned incorrectly on the land. Timothy had offered to alter them, but that still didn't make her happy. When they came to the fifth house, Timothy stood at the doorway and let her wander through. He saw no point in looking, only to hear the drawbacks. When she'd finished looking through, the realtor asked, Do you like any you've seen today? I'm afraid not. Timothy's heart sank. His bedroom was getting further and further away. I just don't know what I'm going to do. How about getting land and building one? Timothy asked. She laughed. Are you trying to get yourself some work, Timothy? He shook his head. No. I just thought if you can't find anything you like, you could have something built, something that you would be happy with. There are more than enough builders around. You don't have to employ me to build it. It was just a suggestion since you're so fussy. That might be worth thinking about. They thanked the realtor and got back into the buggy. Why don't we take Ferris to the park and let her feed the ducks? She'd love that, and she'd love to get out and run. What will she feed them? I made us a few sandwiches before we left, and I packed some extra bread. Did you really? I did. He had only done that so she wouldn't suggest going to the cafe where Tanya worked. When we were younger, Mom used to have sandwiches in the buggy for us whenever we went anywhere. We were always hungry. She laughed. It must be a boy thing. It could be. Let's do it. Timothy drove into the park and pulled up the buggy. While Abigail got Ferris out, Timothy took hold of the picnic basket and grabbed hold of a blanket to sit on. What have you got? She asked. A blanket and the sandwiches. She placed Ferris on the ground, and the excited little girl ran ahead of them. Why not put the blanket here, not too close to the water, because before we know it, Ferris might try to go for a swim. Before he could answer, she was tugging at the blanket. He released his grip, and then she spread the blanket over the grass, sat down on it, and called Ferris back. When Timothy sat down with the basket, Ferris turned around and a look of delight spread across her face when she saw them sitting on the blanket. She ran to them. Abigail took the sandwiches from the basket. Come on, Ferris. Abigail clapped her hands and opened her arms, and Ferris ran as fast as her chubby legs would take her, and collapsed into her mother's arms, laughing all the while. Now sit down. Sit down, Ferris copied her mother. Timothy chuckled at the sound of Ferris's small voice. Abigail broke off a portion from one of the sandwiches and gave it to Ferris. She likes her food, Abigail said, looking across at Timothy. I don't think she's ever said no to food, but when she's done, and you can't feed her anymore. Strong-minded, like her mother. Abigail smiled at him. Maybe. What will you do about a house if you don't like any of those that we've seen? I have in my mind how I want a place, and I won't settle for second best. I've already seen that, and I think that's good, to know what you want. Do you know what you want, Timothy? What do you mean? Abigail took a sandwich and passed him one. In life. He shrugged his shoulders. I guess I just want to be happy. Are you happy now? I was until I was fired. She laughed. Is that all you want, a job? I would feel better if I had a job, and I guess I want the same things everyone wants. I'm not greedy or anything. I don't need much. Start up your own building business if you're as good as you say you are. He nodded. I've often wondered if I should do that. But I don't think I'm ready for it. I know nothing about business. I believe you learn as you go. He bit into his sandwich, thinking about Samuel Kaufman. He'd made his own fortune and had started off with nothing. Samuel had self-confidence. Just one look at him, and you could tell he was a successful man. Was that the key to Samuel's success, self-confidence? You could do it, Timothy. He swallowed his mouthful. You think I could work for myself? I know you could do it. You could build it up into a big business, and then employ other builders. You could create jobs for people, even teach young men. I could, couldn't I? Okay, so you lost your job. Now think of that as a blessing. Maybe you're not supposed to work for somebody else. Maybe God has other plans for you. He noticed the excitement on her face. She couldn't be all bad if she was making suggestions for him and being happy about it. What makes you think I will be able to do it? I already told you. You just want more compliments. You seem to be hardworking, precise, honest, and people respect you. Do they? Yeah. You're very well respected, your whole family is. That's why my father wanted me to stay with your family. Because Bishop Elmer is respected by everyone who knows him. You think I should cash in on my family's name? Yeah, why not? She giggled. When you say it like that, it sounds dreadful. But you know you do a good job for people, so you have to sell yourself and your services. Don't you think people would benefit by having you doing their building work rather than another builder? I do. Then it would be a win-win for everybody. He never thought about it like he'd be doing people a service, and be paid for it too. It's definitely something I'll think about. Start small with just yourself and build up slowly. She tried to give her daughter some more of the sandwich, but Ferris pushed it away. There, she's had enough. Let's find some ducks she can feed. Okay. They left the blanket, and with both of them holding Ferris's hands, they walked to the pond. After they had watched Ferris throw strips of bread to the ducks, they sat and talked while Ferris fell asleep on the blanket. On Saturday morning, Mom insisted on taking Abigail and Ferris visiting after they'd baked. Timothy was left with Dad and the boys, and all the while Timothy couldn't wait until Abigail returned. There was something about her. He wanted to be near her all the time. With Abigail around, he'd hardly thought about Tanya. Chapter 13. Mom, what do you think of me driving Abigail and Ferris to the meeting? Timothy asked early on Sunday morning. I think that's a wonderful idea. He saw a definite sparkle in his mother's eyes. It's not like that. I just want to help her. And you have been helping her from what I've heard. He nodded. I've been trying to. Abigail's already awake. She's getting Ferris ready. Great. Sit down and I'll get you some breakfast. Not long after he sat at the table, his brothers, who were looking very sleepy, walked into the kitchen along with Dad, and they took their places at the table. His father looked as though he'd been awake for hours. On Sundays they never had a cooked meal, because all work was kept to a minimum, and that included the cooking. They had a simple breakfast of cereal, and everyone helped themselves from the containers of cereal and the milk on the table. Good morning, everyone, their father said. All the boys said good morning, and Timothy was the last to do so. Then he quickly added, I'm taking Ferris and Abigail in my buggy today, if that's okay with you. That'll be fine, but that means we'll need to take 3 buggies. We would anyway, Timothy said. His father finished munching on his mouthful of cereal and swallowed. That's true. Thank you, Timothy, that was thoughtful. Timothy smiled and poured more cereal into his bowl. It wasn't long before Abigail walked through the door with Ferris on her hip. Good morning, Bishop Elmer, Hannah, and boys. Everyone turned to look at them, and Ferris gave everybody a big smile. Timothy will drive you this morning and you won't have to put up with the rowdy boys, Hannah said. She sat down on the only spare chair and placed Ferris on her lap. They're not rowdy. I wouldn't mind traveling with the boys. A couple of the older boys smiled at her. Now you won't have to, Timothy said. Hello, Ferris. Ferris gave him a big smile. Would you like me to take her from you while you eat? Thank you, but Ferris and I were awake early and we've already eaten. I'll just sit and watch everyone else eat. Okay. Have you eaten yet, Mom? Timothy asked. Yeah, I have, and you lot better hurry or you'll make us late. Timothy knew his mother was really talking to his father. She'd never tell him to do anything directly. It was always directed at someone else. His father ate the last mouthful of cereal. Come on, Timothy and Daniel, let's go hitch those buggies. Daniel was one of the older teenage boys, next in line after Timothy and Rebecca. Are you ready? Timothy asked Abigail. Yeah, we're ready and waiting to go. Abigail put Ferris onto the floor, and Timothy crouched down and opened his arms. Ferris giggled and turned back to her mother. Not today. She's a little shy sometimes. Or she pretends to be just for fun. Like her mother, Timothy joked, to which Abigail giggled. His mother looked up from clearing his bowl from the table, and he knew in that moment that his mother thought he liked Abigail. They were acting a little too friendly. He looked at his mother, and she gave him a smile. It seemed she wasn't annoyed. Maybe she thought they were a good match. He'd have to watch how he acted toward Abigail around his mother. Let's go if you want to wait outside while I hitch the buggy. Sure, we'll do that. It's a lovely morning. As Timothy hitched the buggy, he thought about the scene in the kitchen. He was a little surprised his mother had smiled at him. He thought she would have preferred a girl for him who had never married, but still, he wasn't going to complain. Abigail got along with everybody in his family, especially his mother, and that was very important to him. And who wouldn't love Ferris? She was just the most adorable, placid, mild-tempered child he'd ever met. He would be pleased and honored to raise Ferris as his own. He glanced over at Abigail just as she looked up and smiled at him. He hoped she returned his feelings, but it was hard to know. She was fun and lively, and he was much quieter. He knew that sometimes opposites attracted, and each person could complement the other. Maybe they would get along because they were so different. Then Timothy's mind drifted to Tanya. He hadn't given up on her, but Abigail was growing on him. He didn't think Abigail would ever like him, and something about her scared him, but the warier he was, the more he grew interested. Once the buggy was hitched, he walked over to the porch where Abigail and Ferris were sitting. Ready? Yeah. He reached out his hands to Ferris, and she reached her hands up to him. Timothy smiled and picked her up. Come on, Ferris. We're going to the meeting to learn about God. Hat. She smiled, reaching for his hat, and pulled it off his head before he could stop her. What are you doing? That's my hat, said Timothy. Hat, Ferris repeated while trying to put it on her own head. The younger boys had just come out of the house, and they laughed at Ferris. I love her, Andrew, his youngest brother, said, which made the other boys laugh some more. Abigail said, Give it back to Timothy now, Ferris. Timothy tried to take it back, and she held onto it tightly. Can I have it back, Ferris? No, mine. The boys giggled again, and then their father called them to get into the buggies, just as Mom came bustling through the door with a stern warning about being late. Abigail managed to get the hat back for Timothy, and then they headed to the buggy. As Timothy drove the young woman and child, he got a glimpse of what it would feel like to drive a family to a meeting. He knew he was ready to take the next step in life, to be a father and a husband. He glanced over at Abigail, and admired how beautiful she was, with the morning sun shining on her light hair and highlighting her delicate and perfectly proportioned profile. She looked at him. What? She seemed oblivious to his feelings in that moment. You're looking lovely this morning. She giggled. Thank you, Timothy, for pretending you like me. I do like you. Well, you shouldn't. I've been horrible and beastly to you, and if you like a girl like that, I feel sorry for you. She shook her head. I know that's not the real you deep down inside. It's not? He shook his head. He didn't know that for sure, but she was too pretty to be horrible, with her glorious fair hair and those blue eyes that sometimes turned to green hazel depending on the light. I'm nervous about meeting new people. You would have met most of the people at the wedding, wouldn't you? And you've been visiting some of the folks with Mom. No, there were too many people at the wedding. There were hundreds of people there, and I didn't know who was from this community and who was a visitor. I'll get to meet everyone today, I guess, and I'm really looking forward to it, although I can't help being a little scared. So you're pretty sure you'll settle here? Yeah. I've made up my mind that Pleasant Valley will be my new home, is my new home. I love everything about it here already. The greenery, the farms, the people, just everything. The weather is okay this time of year, but just you wait. Winter is something else. She shook her head. It couldn't be as bad as where I came from. Oh, I hope not. When they arrived at their destination, Abigail got down from the buggy. As Timothy secured his horse, Abigail and Ferris joined Hannah. At the meetings, the men sat on one side and the women sat on the other. Timothy sat down near the back so he could watch Abigail. She sat in the second row from the front with Hannah. His mother was on one side of her, and on the other side was Mary, Samuel Kaufman's wife. Then beside Mary was Karen, a longtime friend of his family. All of them would help Abigail settle in nicely. And he imagined that Abigail would be a good friend of Rebecca's once his sister came back from the visiting trip with Jacob, in part because the two were close to one another in age. Today the deacon delivered the word rather than Timothy's father. The sermon was about perseverance and long-suffering, and giving others the benefit of the doubt. It was just what Timothy needed to hear. He often found that, though. Whenever he was feeling down or needed an answer, God spoke to him through the preaching. When the meeting was over, Timothy's mother and Mary went to help with the food, while Karen introduced Abigail to some of the women. Timothy helped the men stack the benches to one side in the house, ready to load back onto the church wagon later in the day. When Timothy walked outside, he saw Abigail laughing and talking to Tyler Green, a widower in his early 40s who had 3 children. He thought from the way Abigail was acting that she liked this man. Her late husband had been older, so did she prefer older men? Timothy was surprised how annoyed he was to see her talking to Tyler. He wanted all of her attention. Chapter 14. Abigail's back was to Timothy, and Ferris was looking over her mother's shoulder at him. Timothy smiled at her and waved. Ferris struggled to get down, and her mother set her on the ground and she tried to walk to Timothy, but her mother grabbed her arm and picked her up again. After Ferris let out a loud yell, Abigail put her down, and she struggled to get to Timothy once more. Timothy walked over and crouched down beside her. Hey, what's all the noise? Ferris giggled and lunged for Timothy, and Abigail let go of her arm. Abigail laughed and looked down at Timothy still crouching near her. She was trying to get to you, was she? He stood up with Ferris in his arms, and she played with the collar of his shirt. I think so. I'm sorry. I waved to her, and I guess she wanted to come over and say hello. He looked over at Tyler. I see you met Abigail, Tyler. Yeah? We were talking at your sister's wedding the other day. Timothy tried to think quickly what to say, so he could stay in the midst of the conversation. Did Abigail tell you she's looking for a house? She did, and I told her about one that's not far from me. I'm showing it to her tomorrow. Really? Then I should come along too. Tyler's lips turned down at the corners. It's not necessary. I'm sure you've got other things to do. No, I don't. I've taken 2 weeks off to show Abigail places, and together we're compiling a list of possibilities. I'm glad you could help us. We'll be happy to look at it tomorrow. He smiled at Tyler, making out he had no idea he was butting in on their plans. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see Abigail frowning at him. Tyler turned to Abigail. "I'll see you tomorrow, as arranged." "Okay." And then Tyler walked away without saying anything further to Timothy. Abigail stared up at him. "Timothy, you sounded jealous." "I really don't care how I sounded. I'm the one showing you places." She shrugged and her eyes opened wider. "What does it matter? Someone needs to advise you in what to do, and it's easier if I see all the properties along with you. Dad would have come too, but he's so busy." "Do you like Tyler? Do you like older men? Is that the type you go for?" Timothy knew how awful and bitter that sounded, but he couldn't take it back now that he'd said it. When she opened her mouth in shock, he added, "He must be your type if you're avoiding the question and won't answer me." She giggled. "I don't have a type. And before I think about another marriage, I intend to get settled into the community." She whispered to him, "I'd never rush into another marriage." He smiled, relieved to hear she wasn't falling for Tyler, a man nearly twice her age. "That's a very wise decision. Nothing good ever comes from rushing into things." At that moment, Tanya walked up to them. "Abigail, isn't it?" "That's right, and this is Ferris," Timothy said before Abigail had a chance to respond. "I'm sorry I didn't have much chance to talk to you at the cafe the other day. I've just started there, and I've already gotten 2 warnings about talking to people too much." "That's fine, I understand. Don't worry about that." "Excuse me, ladies. I've got someone I need to see. I'll let you take Ferris back." When Abigail had taken Ferris out of his arms, Timothy left them to talk to one another while he helped himself to some food. When he'd filled his plate, and had settled himself at a table to eat, Abigail and Tanya walked over to him. "Oh, Timothy, could you be a dear and bring me some food?" Abigail smiled at him sweetly, and he knew that she hadn't finished bribing him. "Certainly, and what about you, Tanya? Can I get something for you?" "No, I'll help myself later, thanks all the same." They sat down and he said, "Watch so no one takes my plate away?" "Sure," Tanya answered. Timothy walked away, hoping Tanya didn't think he and Abigail were a couple. As he was helping himself to food for Abigail, May came along beside him. "How are you, friend? Did you get married while you were away, and not tell anybody?" He saw May staring in Abigail's direction. "No, didn't you listen to my father's announcement today?" "I never listen at the meetings. Not to the announcements. Abigail and her daughter are staying with us because she's moved here now, and her husband died recently." May's face changed. "Oh, that's very sad." "It is? She's making a new life for herself in Pleasant Valley." "That's good. Where did she come from?" "Up north from a tiny New York community." Timothy kept filling Abigail's plate with food as they talked, while May did the same for herself. "She's very pretty, and she certainly looks young. Too young to have a child." "I know. She's only about my age," Timothy said. "Far too young to be widowed already." "I'd say she's been through a lot." He glanced at May. "Are you missing April?" April was May's twin, who had caused quite a fuss in the community, and had, as a result, been sent away to live in another community. "Not so much. Not half as much as I expected to miss her." He chuckled in surprise. "What do you mean? You two were practically joined at the hip. You have to be missing her." "I'm my own person now that she's not here. She was always telling me what to do, trying to rule my life." "I had no idea." "It's true." "I'm sorry to hear that," he said. "She's happy now, and I'm happy too. Everyone just thought of us as the twins. I had no individual identity, and now people know me as myself, separate from April. It is a bit lonely because she's not here anymore, but I'm better off." "I never thought of it like that. It would have been hard for you, especially being the younger twin." "She is my twin, and that's important to both of us, but I learned a hard lesson. Sometimes in life we allow others to manipulate us before we know what's happening." She shook her head. "I never should have let things go that far." He glanced back at Abigail, thinking about how she was manipulating him. I know exactly what you mean." May followed his gaze. "You and Tanya not getting along." Tanya and I are getting along fine. You're not a couple yet, are you? He chuckled. That's a funny question to ask. There's nothing wrong with being open and honest with your feelings, Timothy. Timothy gulped. Now May was starting to scare him. He figured he had enough food on the plate. Thank you for the advice. He walked away and sat down at the table and passed Abigail the plate of food. Tanya was nowhere to be seen. He was just about to ask where Tanya was when May sat down next to Abigail. May picked up her fork and then looked over at Timothy. I'm just saying that a lot of men like Tanya, so it would make sense for you to like someone that not so many men liked. This was the last conversation he wanted to have in front of Abigail. May, have you met Abigail yet? Oh hi, you're the new girl. We were just talking about you. I'm sorry to hear about your husband, that must have been a tough blow. And you have a daughter? Yeah, she's asleep in the house right now. Anne's looking after her. May had just put a forkful of chicken into her mouth. Then she looked back at Timothy. What say you about what I just said? Timothy had to look away, because she was talking with her mouth full and it wasn't a pretty sight. You were just talking to Abigail. I mean about liking a girl that isn't so popular. Excuse me, Abigail said as she picked up her plate. You don't need to leave, Timothy said. Thank you, but I'll go and get to know some more people. As May talked to him, he watched Abigail move to a table where Mary and Samuel sat. Then not long after she was seated, Tyler moved to sit in front of her. This all wouldn't have happened if May hadn't joined them. He then realized May was talking. So, why don't you and I get to know each other a little better? May asked. He gulped. He wanted nothing to do with May, and he had to figure out a way to let her down gently. I'm at the stage of my life where I'm not ready to date anybody, because my job is insecure and I want to be settled with some money behind me. If you go that way, there'll be no women left. If you marry when you're young, you both build a future together. If I married someone right now, I'd work, and with 2 wages and a market stall, we'd have our own home in no time. That's the way to do it. That's what April and her husband are doing. What she's doing is the least of my concern, he blurted out. There's no need to talk like that. I'm sorry. He shook his head, disappointed with himself. Sorry. I'm just a little on edge. May pouted. I can see that. I'll leave you alone, Timothy. I'm sorry, he said again. I'll talk to you another time. May left without acknowledging his apology, and Timothy ate the rest of his food in silence, and when he looked up, he saw Anne, his new brother-in-law's older sister, carrying Ferris toward Abigail. Anne was one of the ladies who minded the sleeping babies and toddlers during the meetings. Abigail jumped to her feet and met Anne halfway. When Abigail headed back to her seat, Timothy left his plate on top of a stack of dirty dishes and headed over to eavesdrop on Abigail and Tyler. Tyler was telling Abigail about his children, and Abigail was asking him questions, appearing interested. Timothy didn't like the way this was headed, and couldn't listen to any more of their conversation, so moved to sit with his brothers. Chapter 15. The next time he had a quiet moment with Abigail was in the buggy on their way home. Timothy asked, "How did you find everyone today?" Everyone was so friendly, and I had so much in common with everyone. Who? You only talked to 1 or 2 people. I think I talked to a broad cross-section of people, and they were all friendly and welcoming. Of course, everybody would be friendly. What were you expecting? I know. She giggled. Mary's lovely. She's become a good friend. Yeah, she is, and so is Karen. Karen used to help our family on Saturdays from as far back as I can remember. She's like an older sister. It's because of Karen you've got that lovely bedroom you're staying in. How so? Karen came into some money. More money than she'd ever need, she said, and she convinced my father to build on a room for Rebecca. Being the only girl with so many younger brothers, she really needed her own space. That was very generous. I know. Timothy glanced around at Ferris, who was dozing off again. Are you going to look at the house Tyler suggested? I might as well, but you come too if you can. He smiled at her. Really? Yeah, it's just like you said. If you see them all, we can sit down together and figure out which one would be best suited for me and Ferris. Okay, thanks, I'd like that, but I'm not sure Tyler wanted me to go with you. She threw her head back and laughed. Don't be concerned about that. I'm sure he didn't mean anything by it. He was just trying to be helpful, I think, and there's nothing wrong with that. He might have thought you needed to be at work. Timothy didn't need to be reminded he had no employment. He pressed his lips together, not wanting her to spend time with Tyler. The man was obviously interested in her, and she must have known that. Never change who you are, Timothy. From those few words and from the way she looked at him, he knew she only saw him as a friend and nothing more. I don't intend to. You're very nice. It was a little disappointing, but he knew in his heart Abigail was never going to like someone like him in a romantic kind of a way. When Timothy and Abigail pulled up at the house, Ferris was fast asleep. I don't want to wake her, Abigail said. I'll pick her up and carry her in. Thank you, Timothy. I'll open the door for you. He lifted Ferris, being careful not to wake her. She opened her eyes partway and then slowly closed them again. Then he carried her into Rebecca's old room. Just put her down on the low couch, Abigail said. Sure. He placed Ferris down and Abigail quickly put cushions beside her to wedge her in so she wouldn't fall. Thank you, Timothy. They moved away. She should sleep for another hour or so. It's good that she didn't wake up. I know. As much as I love her, I do look forward to the times when she's sleeping. I'll see you later, Abigail. Abigail said goodbye to him and closed the door behind him. Timothy got back into the buggy and drove around thinking about Abigail and thinking about Tanya. Neither woman seemed to like him, and until one of them did, the decision between the two women was really no decision at all. What did it matter which one he liked best if neither liked him? And what was going on with May? Over breakfast the next morning, Abigail said, You don't have to show me anything today because Tyler can show me that house. I thought we'd straighten that out. You do have your job, Timothy, his mother reminded him. I can rearrange my day, Mom. My hours aren't set in stone. He looked back at Abigail. I said I'd take you today. I know, but last night Tyler stopped by and we got to talking, and I agreed for him to take me alone. I didn't hear him. It was past your bedtime, she joked. I'm not lying. He came inside, didn't he, Hannah? That's right, we all talked for quite some time. Is that right? Timothy folded his arms across his chest, mad with himself for having an early night. He never normally went to bed so early. Anyway, you have your job to do, Abigail added with a smirk. And speaking of your job, Timothy, you'd better hurry or you'll be late. His mother tapped him on the shoulder. I've arranged to work a little bit later today, and I'm only doing that so I can take Abigail to look at that place Tyler told her about. Now you won't need to anymore because Tyler is taking her. He knew he was making a fuss. I think it's best that I see the property with her, Mom. It will be good experience for me when I buy one for myself. Besides that, Abigail and I talked yesterday about me seeing all the houses so that I can help her decide which one would be most suitable. I really think it's best I go. I know Dad hasn't had much time with all the church business and all his duties, and you don't have a lot of time. I'm the logical person to help. If you want to, there wouldn't be any harm in it, his mother said. I'm sure Tyler wouldn't mind. He just thought you'd like to have a free day with concentrating on your new job. Abigail smiled at him. You're happy for me to go with you? Of course. More than happy. I'd like you to see it as well. Abigail didn't look too worried to have him tagging along. And then we'll hurry back so you won't be late for your job. And that's why it's best that I drive you. What time is Tyler coming? He'll be here in about 10 minutes, Abigail said. I might have to wake Ferris. I was hoping she'd wake by herself. Come to think of it, I better wake her now so she can eat before we go. When Abigail and Timothy, with Ferris in his arms, walked out to Tyler's buggy, Tyler didn't look happy. You're coming with us, Timothy? You're coming with me if that's okay. Timothy nodded toward his already hitched and waiting horse and buggy. I'd rather not. That's what I've arranged with Timothy, Abigail said to Tyler. Do you mind if we go in his buggy, and then he'll bring us back here? If that's okay with you, Abigail, then it's okay with me. Tyler gave Abigail a sickening smile, and Timothy had to look away. When they were traveling in the buggy, with Abigail in the front and Tyler in the back, Tyler asked, If you don't like this place, Abigail, do you mind if I keep an eye out for you? I think I need all the help I can get, because I haven't liked anything I've looked at so far. Each place has had good points, but other aspects that didn't suit me. Good. Then that's what I'll do. Chapter 16. It was no surprise that Abigail dismissed the house before even going inside. Timothy arrived back home, and then, once Abigail, Ferris, and Tyler were out of his buggy, he had to pretend to go to work. On the way home, Tyler had asked him some pretty tricky questions about how he was able to take off so much time. It seemed Tyler had taken a day off work to show Abigail the house, and Timothy was certain Tyler hoped to spend the rest of the day with Abigail. Timothy tried his best to push those concerns out of his mind, and continued into town. On the way, he stopped in at likely places asking for work. One of those places was a timber mill, one that wasn't owned by Samuel Kaufman. Timothy didn't do that kind of work, but he was getting desperate. The workers there suggested he try the local hardware store because they had seen a staff wanted sign in their window. When Timothy got to the hardware store, he couldn't see a sign, and when he asked, they told him the job had only just been taken. After that disappointment and waste of time, he needed something to eat and headed to his favorite cafe. On his way there, he passed Samuel's wife Mary in her buggy and they waved to one another. He hoped Abigail would spend time with people like Mary rather than men like Tyler, who was probably trying to find a wife to look after his children. Abigail needed a man to look after her, one who could concentrate solely on her. It seemed Timothy's timing was totally off, because when he parked his buggy and was just about to get out, he saw Tanya leaving. He realized how late it was and that her lunchtime shift was over. He sank low in his seat and stayed in the buggy hoping she wouldn't see him. When she walked around the corner, he stayed where he was for a good 10 minutes before he pulled out back onto the road. Rather than waste money on cafe food, he decided to get a takeout burger and fries. He still had a good amount of money saved, but he couldn't live on his savings. Sooner or later his money would run out. After he ate, he filled in time by visiting friends until it was time to go home. As soon as he pulled up at home, Abigail came out to greet him. There you are? I've been waiting for you to get home because my room needs cleaning. What? I'll need you to clean my room, but not today. As soon as you can. When no one's home, you can clean it. He frowned at her, hoping she wasn't still trying to bribe him. Have you been home all day? Tyler took Ferris and me out briefly, just for a couple of hours. He drove me around some different areas to see which ones I'd like. Don't get jealous. She giggled. This whole jealous thing has gone far enough, don't you think? No, I don't. I think it hasn't gone far enough. He shook his head. I was only trying to help you out, Abigail. And I appreciate that, I do. She looked around, stepped closer, and whispered, Did you fill in time by visiting your girlfriend in the coffee shop? Timothy's mouth fell open. How could she have possibly picked up that he liked Tanya? He'd made certain to show no interest in her in front of Abigail. She is your girlfriend, isn't that right? Shish, keep your voice down. No, that's not so. No one can hear me. Anyway, then your mother had me ordering the boys about with the cleaning. Just as well Rebecca escaped when she did. Rebecca didn't do much in the way of chores because she was always on call. She's a midwife. When she got a call, she'd always have to be well rested. A smart girl. I just don't have the interest in having everything clean and sterile. I like things to be clean, but there's a certain point. Never mind. Anyway, your mother said she's going to some charity thing tomorrow, and she asked me if I could do some jobs. I think that my parents told her to have me do things around here. I thought I was coming here as a guest, to have a rest. My parents are strong believers in hard work. And they believe that being busy is the best way to keep from thinking about one's troubles. They'd be upset with you if they ever find out what you've been up to then. You're not working and you're hiding it from them. He looked down, rubbing his forehead. She was right. If you don't want them to find out, I'll need your help tomorrow. You can't be serious. She placed her hands on her hips. I'm deadly serious. I need a break from all this cleaning. What cleaning have you done since you got here? She lifted her chin high. I don't have to listen to you. He shook his head. Okay, I'll clean the room just to give you a break from all your work, and because you're bribing me. Thank you, but you're really doing it only because I'm bribing you. You can think what you want, Abigail. He unhitched the buggy with her talking to him about houses, and how she still didn't like anything she'd seen. After he'd rubbed the horse down, he let him out into his paddock. He turned and walked past Abigail, and she hurried to walk beside him. I figure tomorrow morning you can go out as usual, and then come home by 10. Your mother said she'd be gone by then. He walked into the kitchen, to find everyone sitting around the table. Ah, you're all waiting for me. Yeah, we asked Abigail to fetch you in a hurry so the food wouldn't go cold. We were as fast as we could be, Abigail said as she took her seat. I'll just wash up and I'll be right with you. Do hurry, Timothy, his mother said. Chapter 17. Over dinner, guilt was eating away at Timothy, and he knew he had to confess that he'd lost his job and had hidden it from everyone. The other thing he knew was that Abigail didn't suit him at all, and he'd been swayed by her beauty and had forgotten the girl who suited him best, Tanya. When Abigail and his mother were placing the dessert bowls on the table, Timothy said, "When everyone is seated, I have an announcement to make." His mother quickly sat, and so did Abigail. He stood up and then changed his mind, but he couldn't think of anything else he could say, so he had to go through with it. A few days ago, I lost my job. Oh, Timothy, how long did you have the job? His mother asked. You've barely been there 2 minutes. Only a day. I was fired on my second day. All eyes were on him and he found it difficult to continue, but he had to. The thing was, I was embarrassed about that, and I pretended I still had the job. I ask everyone's forgiveness for deceiving you all. I don't have a job anymore, and what's more, I can't find anybody to employ me, and I pretty much feel like a loser. There's no need to feel like that, Timothy, Abigail said. I must also confess that I knew what was happening and said nothing. Only because I asked you to keep quiet, Timothy said. Everybody goes through a rough patch every now and again, his mother said. Abigail nodded in agreement with his mother, but Timothy was more upset that he'd disappointed his father. Is that how you had the time to show Abigail these properties? Mom asked. Timothy nodded. I was hoping to get another job, so I wouldn't have to admit I'd been fired. It's an awful feeling to know that you're not wanted. Mr. Monty said it was the buggy being too slow to get to the jobs quickly enough, and he hired someone with a car. Never be afraid to tell the truth, Timothy, his father said. Let that be a lesson to all you younger boys. His brothers remained quiet, and Timothy wondered whether they thought less of him for the charade. When Timothy sat down, everybody started talking again as normal. Later that night, when Abigail was preparing her after-dinner cup of hot tea, Timothy walked into the kitchen. Now are you going to stop bribing me? Of course I will. There's no point to it now, is there? Timothy chuckled. I reckon you were pretty scared back then. You thought I was going to tell my parents what you were up to with bribing me. I thought you were going to confess that. I wouldn't do that because that would have made you look stupid. He didn't say anything, but he knew she was right. He also knew this wasn't the girl for him. It was her good looks and fun-filled nature that had attracted him, but he needed a woman with more substance. At least now I feel like I've got my brain back, he mumbled. Your brain? He chuckled. And now I'm talking to myself. Ah. You can stop pretending you like me. Can I interest you in a cup of hot tea? He shook his head. I can't believe how early your folks go to bed. Mine stay up late. Will you sit and talk to me? Once she offered him a dazzling smile, he couldn't resist her invitation. Sure. He pulled out a chair and sat down. She placed her cup and saucer in front of her. It's so peaceful when Ferris is asleep. I do feel like I'm in the way here. Don't get me wrong, your mother and the bishop have been very welcoming, but I know you all share rooms and you must need Rebecca's old room. Who normally shares that one? Ah, I remember, that was only Rebecca's. You told me that already. He watched her place her dewy lips on the edge of the cup and take a sip. I was supposed to get that room when Rebecca got married, and somehow you ended up with it. She smiled and looked a little guilty. I won't be here forever. I'll be moving soon. I do appreciate you giving up the room for me. It was very kind. You're a kind and generous man. You've been so good to me since I've been here. You've been a true friend. Her words made Timothy feel worse. You're welcome. I guess. I hope you didn't mean that bit before about me pretending to like you. You do like me? I do, but only as a friend. Ah, that girl in the coffee shop. Yeah, the girl that you tried to ruin things with. That's not so. Abigail licked her lips. I hope you end up with her. What do you mean? You want her to be your girlfriend, right? And maybe one day soon you'll talk her into marrying you? Timothy stared at her, wondering if she was joking again. I do, but I hope I don't have to talk her into it. I would want to marry someone who wants to marry me just as much. I think Tanya's now got the idea that you and I'll help you with her. I'll help you win her heart. He chuckled. You would? Yeah. I'd like that, he said. This plan will be put into action tomorrow. He chuckled. Are you sure you want to do this? Yeah, I love matchmaking. You two would make an adorable couple. Okay, what do we do? She tapped a finger on her chin. We go back to the cafe where she works. And then you leave the rest to me. Timothy nodded. He had no idea what she was up to, but he was confident she would think of something. And she, being a woman herself, would know what a young woman like Tanya would want in a man. After a few moments of silence, she said, I have a plan worked out. I'm leaving as soon as I eat. You'll see what I've got up my sleeve, and then I'll hand the reins over to you. How will I know what to say to her? I can lead you to water, Timothy, but I can't teach you to swim. You have to do something on your own. You have to be creative when you're talking to Tanya. Shouldn't I just be myself? No. Most women want something just out of reach. If someone else wants something or someone, it becomes more attractive. He remembered how Tanya kept smiling at him the day he was with Abigail in the cafe. Make Tanya think she has competition, or someone else is interested? Someone like you, for instance? She nodded sharply. Exactly. He hoped that would work. It could, unless something went wrong. What do you have planned for your exit? It's nothing awful, is it? Like faking food poisoning or choking? No, you have to trust me. Okay. I will. We'll go back there tomorrow, okay? Yeah. Chapter 18. The very next day, they were back at the cafe where Tanya worked. Timothy, Abigail and Ferris sat around the table. Ferris was in a high chair pushed up to the side of the table. Abigail had suggested they go mid-morning to avoid the lunch hour rush. Tanya seemed pleased to see them as she headed toward them. Hello, everyone. Abigail smiled at her. Hello, Tanya. Having lunch or coffees? Just waiting for one extra person, Abigail said. That was news to Timothy. He shouldn't be long. Abigail smiled at Tanya. I'll come back in a minute then. As soon as Tanya left, Timothy asked, Who are we waiting for? This is all part of my plan. Just be natural and go with the flow. At that moment, Tyler came through the doorway and Abigail waved him over. Tyler looked just as surprised to see Timothy as Timothy was to see him. Are you ready, Abigail? He gave Timothy a quick nod. Not yet. Sit down and we'll have a quick bite to eat first. Tyler sat down at the table. Is everyone having lunch? Abigail opened the menu. The two men said they weren't ready for lunch, so Abigail ordered hot tea for herself and a small milk for Ferris. Tyler had a coffee while Timothy had a sparkling water. Okay, let's have a look at that house now, Abigail said to Tyler once she had finished her tea. Another house? Timothy was surprised. Tyler looked at Timothy. Are coming with us, Timothy? No, Abigail said. Timothy has another appointment and is waiting for someone else. Okay. She picked up Ferris and together with Tyler, they left the cafe. Timothy sat and watched them go and noticed Tanya, working behind the coffee machine, was also watching them leave. They definitely looked like a young family as they walked out that door. Tanya hurried over to Timothy. What's going on there? He's showing her a house to buy. Oh? It would be funny if they got married, she said. He's lost his wife and she's lost her husband. They could very easily. They look like a good couple together, Timothy said. Can I get you something else, Timothy? I might have a bowl of fries. She smiled at him. A bowl of fries coming up. When she came back a few minutes later with the fries, she sat down with him. What are you doing? Won't you get into trouble? I'm on a 10-minute break. It's okay. Oh, good, because I wouldn't want to be the cause of you getting into trouble. It's fine. I must admit, I thought you were interested in Abigail. He looked into her dark eyes. Really? She's beautiful. Oh, I didn't really notice. He swallowed hard. Tanya, would you go out with me sometime? A smile touched her lips. Okay. Good. When? He swallowed hard again. Tonight. I'd like that. When do you finish work? His heart sank and he couldn't bring himself to confess he'd lost his job. He avoided the subject. I can collect you around 6. That suits me, she said as she stood to go back on duty. He finished off his food and then left the cafe, feeling good about himself. Abigail had definitely helped him, and he was grateful for it. Chapter 19. Timothy spent the rest of the afternoon going about asking for work. Then he finally called at Samuel's house and told him what had happened, that he'd lost the job. Samuel said he might have work soon at the lumberyard, but he then suggested Timothy start his own business. Timothy headed home, thinking seriously about starting off on his own. When he was home and unhitching the buggy, Abigail hurried over to him. What happened with Tanya? He'd forgotten he was collecting her at 6. What's the time? 5:30. Timothy straightened up and stopped what he was doing. I'm taking her somewhere at 6. Why are you unhitching the buggy? He thought quickly. I'm taking a fresh horse. That wasn't a bad idea. Terry's been out all day and he could do with a rest. I'm happy for you. Whatever you did or said must have worked. Yeah, thank you for your help. You might come back and tell us you're getting married next week or something. He chuckled. I don't think so. I'm more of a plodder. I don't do things quickly. She stepped closer. I know, but still, I thought you'd have a bit more enthusiasm than what you're showing. As I said, it was okay. I mean, she agreed to go out with me. Then cheer up. I thought you'd be doing cartwheels around the paddocks. He shook his head. I can't keep anything from you, you see straight through me. She doesn't interest me like I thought she would. He looked into her eyes. I'd rather be taking you somewhere. Abigail's mouth fell open. Give her another chance, Timothy, or give her one chance, I should say. You might change your mind tonight. Do you think so? She nodded, and that confirmed she wasn't interested in him. Not if she was anxious for him to go out with another woman. Timothy sighed. I'm just glad the plan worked, Abigail said. She didn't think there was something happening between you and me, did she? She giggled. What made you say that? Do you think we'd be that unlikely a couple? She took a step and patted Terry, his horse, on his neck. I've never really thought about it. That's not why I laughed. I just think it's funny that she would think we were a couple, that's all. He put his head down. Now he knew he was the last person that she would go out with, and the last man she would marry. They were opposites. He was quiet, she was outgoing, and around her he felt even quieter. I've got some news to tell you. I'll wait until you get home from your date. He looked into her eyes. You're not marrying Tyler, are you? She giggled and slapped his arm. No, silly. Bye, I'll tell you when you come back. I'll wait up. He rubbed his arm where she'd touched it as he watched her hurry back to the house. He hitched the fresh horse to the buggy, knowing he had to give Tanya a chance. He'd liked her for so long, and he had to be practical. He didn't want to be alone forever, and before Abigail had arrived, Tanya was the only woman he'd seen himself with. It worried him that he was so easily swayed back and forth between Tanya and Abigail. Perhaps tonight he'd know for sure who God wanted him to be with, if it was one or the other of these two women. As he grew closer to Tanya's house, he grew more nervous. What if things didn't go so well, and then he would have to see her all the time at meetings and at the cafe? He felt much more relaxed being around Abigail, but then he had seen her dark side, and that gave him reason to set his eyes on Tanya. He jumped down from the buggy and headed to Tanya's front door. Tanya opened it and stood there with a bright and happy face. "Are you ready?" he asked. "I sure am." As they traveled down the road, he struggled to find anything to talk about. She was equally silent, which only made him more nervous. "Can you stop the buggy a moment?" she asked. He slowed his horse and pulled the buggy over to one side. "What is it?" He thought she must be unwell. "Could you take me home?" "Why? Are you ill?" She looked okay. "I'm okay. It's just that this isn't right." "You don't want to go out with me?" "No. Well, I did, but then when I think about it, I don't see we're suited. That's why we're spending time together, to get to know one another, to find that out." "Are you saying you know that already?" "Yeah. To be honest with you, there's someone else I like." He looked away and nodded. "I'm sorry, Timothy," she said, placing her hand on his shoulder. Her words, he realized, had come as more of a relief than a disappointment. "I'm okay. I'll take you home." He moved his horse onto the road to turn his buggy around. "I'll get over it in time." "I feel dreadful about this." "Don't. It's perfectly fine. It's good that you were honest and told me." Once he had taken her home, he looked forward to seeing Abigail. Then he drove a short distance down the road and pulled the buggy off to the side to think. If he went straight back home, he'd be plagued with too many questions about why he was home so soon. He slid down in the seat, closed his eyes and rested, figuring he'd go home around the time the date with Tanya should have ended. Chapter 20. When he approached the house, he saw the gaslight glowing from the kitchen window. Abigail had stayed up just like she'd said. As he unhitched the buggy, he had an idea. What if he beat Abigail at her own game? He liked her, so could he test her feelings for him? What would happen if he went inside and told her what a good time he'd had with Tanya, instead of telling her that nothing had come of it? He laughed to himself. That's exactly what I'll do. He washed his hands in the mudroom and then walked into the kitchen. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her hands around a teacup. "How was it?" "It was great. I owe it all to you." The smile left her face. "Really?" "Yeah." "Sit down and I'll make you." "Wait, you only drink water, don't you?" "Yeah, mostly." "I'll get you a glass of water." She jumped up and filled a glass for him while he pulled out a chair and sat down at the table. As she placed the glass down in front of him, she sat. "Tell me everything from the beginning and don't leave anything out." "I can't. What happened is between me and Tanya. It's our story." "Oh well, you wouldn't have a story if it weren't for me." He chuckled. "You're so mean," she said, turning up her nose. "Coming from the woman trying to make me clean her room and clean her shoes." Her lips turned down at the corners. "Well, I have been mean, I guess." "Yeah, you have, and more than a little. I've been waiting up to hear your news." Timothy could barely keep the smile from his face. "We had a good time, and that's all I can say." She shook her head at him. "Well, I have news." "That's right. What's your news?" "I'm buying that house and I'm moving in a few days." "Congratulations. I'm glad you found one you liked. How can you move in so soon?" "Because I'll be paying rent until the sale is finalized. No one's living in it." She took a sip of hot tea. "How and when did all this happen?" "Tyler took me to see the house, and then I made the offer. The owners accepted it." "Ah. He was disappointed she wouldn't be around so much, and that he wasn't the one who helped her buy the place. That is good news. Which one did you buy? She giggled. You've already seen it. What one? The first one we looked at. Ah, the one with the 2 small kitchen, and with the 2 small windows, and the 1 small bedroom and 2 larger ones? That's right. And I will take you up on your offer of fixing the place. I'll have enough money left over to pay you. Hang on a minute. You hated that place. She smiled. You never let a realtor know you like it, or the price goes up. I waited a suitable time, had another look at it, and you said some more horrible things about it, right? Yeah, and it ended up that I got it for a good price. I'm happy for you, and I'll gladly do the work for you as a friend. No. I'll be paying you for your work. I've also decided you should work for yourself, doing remodeling and repairs and such. Starting your own building company, like we talked about the other day. He put his elbow on the table and placed his chin on his knuckles. I don't know if there'd be enough work out there. How much work do you have on at the moment? Well, nothing, as you know. So there. You've got nothing to lose if you put yourself out there. You're a good builder, yeah? I am. He slowly nodded. I think you might be right, but still I won't charge you. We'll talk about it later when I own it officially. I'm happy you found something you're happy with. It occurred to him he'd now have his bedroom, but he wasn't happy because he wanted her to stay around. I'm happy you got along with Tanya. He stared into her blue eyes and wanted to tell her that she was the one he liked, not Tanya. Fearing another rejection, he kept his mouth closed. She took a sip of hot tea. I've been so mean to you. Yeah, you have. I will make it up to you. I don't see how. He shook his head. Let's put it behind us. Do you want a hand with moving in when the time comes? I will. I sold everything to move here, and by everything I mean everything. I was hoping you'd take me to look at furniture. I thought I was through with being your slave. She smiled at him. You'd be doing this as my friend. Ah, well, that puts a different spin on things. I'll happily do that. Thank you. She took a sip of tea. I hope Tanya won't mind me spending time with you. Me too. I'll have to ask her for permission. He looked back at Abigail, and she looked away with her lips tightly pressed together. I was hoping we could do it tomorrow, she asked. Okay. I'm sure Tanya won't mind. Chapter 21. The next day, after 2 hours looking at furniture, Abigail had chosen the pieces she wanted and placed deposits on them. Hannah had offered to look after Ferris, so Abigail could better concentrate on her purchases. Timothy suggested they eat at a nearby diner, and this time Abigail did not insist to go where Tanya worked. In fact, neither of them mentioned Tanya at all. Timothy saw himself married to Abigail, and being a father to young Ferris. Having a family would give him reason to start out on his own, and with Abigail's encouragement and with God's blessing, it couldn't fail. As soon as they walked back in the door, Mom hurried to Abigail with a bundle of letters in her hand. Ferris has just started acting ready for a nap. She's been playing with Andrew and Joel. She's been so good. A lot of mail came for you today, Abigail. Abigail said, It's my birthday tomorrow, I guess that's why. Oh. It's Timothy's birthday too, Mom said, looking delighted. We'll have a combined birthday dinner tomorrow night. Timothy and Abigail exchanged smiles, pleased to share a birthday. Just then Ferris came in from the living room and ran to Abigail, who lifted her up into a big hug. No. You know I don't like a fuss being made for my birthday, Mom. Abigail nodded. And neither do I. It's not necessary. To me, it's just another day. Nonsense. We'll have all your favorite food, Timothy, and what's yours, Abigail? I don't really have a favorite. I like everything except for fish. We don't eat so much fish anyway, so that's no problem, Mom said. Timothy's favorite is roast turkey with cranberry sauce. Will you be okay with that? That sounds lovely, but please don't go to a lot of trouble. See? I'm not the only one who wants to keep it simple, Timothy added. Mom stared at him. Is there anyone special you'd like me to invite? He shook his head. I'd prefer it to be just family, and Abigail along with Ferris, of course. What about you, Abigail? Do you have special guests you'd like to invite? No, thank you. That's what we'll have then, a family dinner with our new friends, Abigail and Ferris. Timothy and Abigail smiled at one another again when Mom hurried away. Imagine that, Timothy said. We knew we were the same age, but not that we had the very same birthday in the same year. Abigail nodded. Why wouldn't you invite Tanya? He shook his head, and then Ferris reached out her arms to him. He took her from Abigail. It's complicated. I'll tell you about it another time. How can it be complicated already? You said you enjoyed the buggy ride. I thought you were in love. He looked at her, wanting to tell her he was in love, but not with Tanya. I think she's tired, Abigail said with a nod toward Ferris. Thank you for helping me today. I enjoyed it. I had a good day. I'll find where Mom has gone and tell her again not to fuss about the birthdays. Abigail giggled. Okay. I might have a rest while Ferris is sleeping. Timothy waited until after dinner, when Abigail and he were alone, to make his confession about Tanya. He wasn't comfortable with not being completely honest about things. I was joking around with you about my date with Tanya. I'm really not feeling what I thought I'd feel. She's a great girl, but I don't want to marry her. He wondered if he would have still liked Tanya if Abigail hadn't come along, but what did it matter now that Tanya had her eye on another man? Even if Abigail didn't return his feelings, he knew that there were deeper feelings to be had than he'd experienced with Tanya. Now that he knew that, he'd wait for that special woman God had created just for him, while he hoped against all hope that Abigail would be that woman. Oh, that's sad. What's that? He asked, tipping his hat back slightly. That you're not feeling anything for Tanya. He nodded. I guess it is, but she feels the same. She wanted to end the ride, and I'm happy she did. It came as a relief. In that moment he realized he was going against Samuel's advice, but he didn't want to win a woman by deceptive means, even if it were a harmless deception. So, you're back to finding the right woman? Back on the search? I am. He nodded. I suppose I could help you, since Tanya and you didn't work out. There's no need to do that. I'm in no hurry. Oh, so you don't want my help? He shook his head, and wondered if she knew what was going on in his head. No. She laughed. That's rude. Don't look so offended. Am I so bad that I'd need help? He chuckled. Don't answer that. Let's just say I don't need your help because it'll happen when it's meant to. Timothy, in life you have to make things happen. God tells us to go out and do things. Without us, what can He do? He's behind our actions helping us, but if we don't act, He won't help us. He couldn't tell her she was the one he wanted. He'd feel like a fool if she rejected him. What about you and Tyler? Have you found your next husband there? She looked away from him. That's private. Oh, private for you, but my personal life isn't? She giggled. Okay, I see what you mean. Tyler is a nice man, but he is too old for me, and if he weren't so old we still wouldn't be suitable. I married because I saw no other future for myself. The next time I marry, it'll be for love. I appreciate you giving me an honest answer. I'm an honest person. He slowly nodded. Sometimes he hadn't been sure about that. Good to know. As she took another sip of tea, he was tempted to ask what kind of man she liked, but wasn't certain he wanted to hear the answer. It might only upset him. A woman like Abigail would like someone older than she, but not as old as Tyler, someone with a little more substance behind him, not a man with no job and no home of his own. Abigail had Ferris to think about, so maybe another widower would be attractive to Abigail, so Ferris would have an instant family with brothers and sisters. I do hope your mother doesn't go to any trouble tomorrow night. She wouldn't listen to me about not making a big thing of it. There'll just be lots of food and cake, I guess. That'll be all. She enjoys doing things like that. Maybe if he was a couple of years older, Abigail might find him more of a marriage prospect than a friend. He took a deep breath and asked, if you marry again, what would you like that man to be like? She stared at him, and he felt as though he shouldn't have asked. Just someone nice and someone who loves me and Ferris. He'd have to treat Ferris as his own and not show any favorites when we have other children together. What about the man himself? Should he be older, younger and that kind of thing? Someone I can talk to and someone who makes me feel good. I like to be around happy people. The worst thing for me would be to end up with someone who grumbles about things all the time. I like to have fun. I figured that much out. Ferris's cries rang through the air. There's my girl. I might as well take this tea to bed with me. She stood. Night, Timothy. Night. As she was walking to her bedroom, he called out, I'll see you tomorrow on our birthday. She turned around and smiled at him. Chapter 22. After breakfast the next morning, Timothy headed off early to visit Samuel. When he got closer, he recalled all the visitors Samuel had at his house. Instead of pulling into Samuel's driveway, he drove straight on. A little way up the road, he saw two men working on fences. When he got closer, he saw one of the men was Samuel. The other man must have been a hired worker, or maybe one of his guests was helping out. Samuel looked up when Timothy yelled out to him, and then he walked over. Timothy jumped down from the buggy and met him halfway. Hello, what brings you out here? Samuel asked. I need to talk with you if you've got a few moments. Sure, what's up? I've developed real feelings for someone, and I wanted to ask your advice about things. He took off his hat. Are we talking about Tanya? Samuel asked. Yeah. Sort of. Well, no. Samuel started rolling up one sleeve. What happened with you and Tanya? She's still around. I took her on a buggy ride, and I couldn't wait for it to end. And what happened was a long story, but I just wanted to get home to see Abigail. Ah, Abigail. He smiled. Yeah. Samuel chuckled. You moved on from Tanya pretty quickly. She wasn't feeling it either. She told me she likes someone else. Is that bad? No, it's not. Better to know that now, instead of unknowingly going out with the wrong woman. He rolled up the other sleeve. I never got to know Tanya very well, not as well as I know Abigail. Tanya's nice enough, but... Sounds like you're in love. I know I am. Timothy put his hat back on. It feels good, doesn't it? He put his hand over his stomach. I don't know about that. My stomach is churning just thinking about her. Samuel patted him on his shoulder and grinned. Yeah, that's love. It does all kind of things to you. Would it ever work, though? Can I be a proper father to Ferris? I've become a father to Lois, so marrying a widow with a child can work well. Timothy stared at him. Your situation was a little different because Lois is your niece. It's Mary who was the outsider to the family, not you. He watched Samuel's face grow expressionless, hard like stone. That's right. You're very right. My point is, it can and will work. Everyone's situation is different, but love finds a way. He looked over at the man working on the fence line. I better help with the fence. Do you want to stop by later and talk some more? No, thank you. I should get going. I have a few inquiries to make about working for myself. Good. He slapped him on his shoulder, turned and strode away. Timothy watched Samuel. Normally, Samuel would have found more time for him. Samuel had become abrupt at the inquiry about what was said about Lois. Then Timothy wondered if Lois hadn't been Samuel's sister's child. What if Lois had been Mary's child all along? He'd mentioned something about it working, marrying a widower with a child. Then he remembered how Mary's first husband had died suddenly many years ago. What if she'd found out she was having a baby and in her grief had offered the child to her childless friend, who was Samuel's sister Beth? While he climbed in his buggy, he remembered Karen, Mary, and Samuel's sister Beth were inseparably close friends. He knew Beth had miscarried many times because he'd overheard his mother and Rebecca talking about it once. Although the time frame of everything was fuzzy. Was he being overly suspicious? It fit with what Abigail had said to him a few days ago, so maybe she knew something he didn't. Timothy headed to the gift store to buy Abigail something nice. It didn't take long. The moment he saw it, He knew it was the perfect present. After he paid for the gift, he pulled up at home and saw Abigail and Ferris in the garden. He hid the gift under his coat, jumped down from his buggy and headed over to them. After he greeted them, he plunged into his questioning. "The other day, you said something that I couldn't understand. Do you know someone who had a child, and then someone else was raising it or something?" Her face went strange and she looked away from him, picked Ferris up and placed her on her hip. "I don't know what you mean." He stepped closer. "Lois?" She gasped. "You know?" He didn't know, but if she thought he did, then he might be able to find out more. "Yeah, I do." She shook her head. "Who told you?" "I figured it out for myself." "How did you find out?" Abigail looked around to be sure they were alone. "I don't think anyone else knows, so you have to keep it quiet. I overheard Samuel and Mary talking when I was staying with them." She was comparing her current pregnancy to the one when she was having Lois. "I had been told a different story." "Yeah?" He was going over it in his head as he said it. Mary was widowed very suddenly, and she must have given the baby to her friend Samuel's sister Beth to raise. Then there was a dreadful accident that killed them both, Beth and her husband, and Lois was spared. Samuel took her in as his niece. Then Mary married Samuel, and they have never told anyone what really happened. I was too young to notice what was happening back then. Lois must be about 6 or 8 or something like that now. She leaned into him. "Yeah? We can't tell anyone, Timothy." "I know. Can you keep it quiet?" "I can." She nodded. "Me too." They stood there smiling at one another, and Timothy wanted to kiss her, but the moment was ruined when Ferris grabbed his hat. "Ferris, you can't keep doing that." "Can you help now, Abigail?" His mother called out from the kitchen. "I'm coming, Hannah." She turned back to Timothy. "Do you think your parents know?" "They could, but don't mention it just in case. If you say anything to Mom, she'll have to tell Dad." "No, I wouldn't." "Of course I wouldn't." She took the hat from Ferris and gave it back to Timothy. "Do you want me to watch her for a while?" "Would you?" "Yeah, I'd like to." "Okay, but she's a little grumpy. I'm trying to keep her awake for another hour or so, and then she'll be ready for a good nap." He bounced Ferris around on his hip as Abigail hurried inside. "What are you and I going to do, Ferris? Shall we say hello to my horse?" He walked her over to his buggy horse. As Ferris patted the horse, Timothy chuckled and whispered to Ferris, "I think I just outsmarted your mom. She thinks she's clever, but maybe I'm the clever one. I hope so anyway." When Ferris was done patting the horse, she reached for Timothy's hat, and he leaned so far back it fell off his head. "Hat," Ferris said as Timothy picked it up off the ground. "Yeah, it's a hat. You'll wear a prayer cap when you're older, but not a hat. Let's visit the chickens." Timothy took her around visiting all the animals until they ended back at the house. Timothy lifted her up to the kitchen window to look in at her mother. Mom and Abigail laughed, and then Abigail joined them outside. "I think she's more than ready for that nap," Abigail said. "She's been yawning lots." Timothy handed Ferris back to her mother when the little girl put her arms out to Abigail. "Thank you, Timothy. Mam's not working you too hard in there, is she?" "No, not at all. Because it is your birthday." Abigail rolled her eyes. "And yours." "Don't remind me. We won't be able to forget it's our birthdays, because we're having a birthday dinner and cake." "Great. Well, I should unhitch this horse. He's been waiting around for a while." She nodded, and then they went their separate ways. As Timothy unhitched the buggy, he hoped Abigail could see how good he was with Ferris, and translate that into what a good father he'd be. Ferris liked him, and Abigail would have to notice that. And he liked Ferris, surely Abigail saw that too. When he was barely done caring for his horse, the phone rang. "Hello, Schroeder residence. May I speak with Timothy Schroeder, please?" "This is Timothy." "Good. It's Austin Monty calling. I believe I owe you an apology. I was wrong to cut you off from your job after only the one day, and it wasn't at all fair of me to expect you to complete so many tasks in a day without knowing the necessary details and materials. Apology accepted. I'd like to have you come into the office and discuss the job again, with the understanding that you would do your own quoting. Also, after seeing the quality of your work, I'd be offering you a higher wage. Would you be able to come in tomorrow at 10 o'clock to meet with me? Yes, I would. I'm free tomorrow morning. I'll see you then. Good. That's all for now. Goodbye. Timothy hung up the phone in a daze. Now he'd have to decide between the maintenance job or going into business for himself. Perhaps he could combine the two, but he would save the thinking for tomorrow, and he'd wait until after the meeting with Mr. Monty before saying anything to anyone. He headed inside with Abigail's gift covered by a black coat. He'd hide it somewhere once he got inside, and give it to her after dinner when they were by themselves. Chapter 23. Mom called everyone to the table for the special combined birthday dinner. After they said their silent prayers of thanks for the food, one of the younger boys blurted out, "How old are you, Mrs. Walton?" Timothy jumped in. "I can tell you she's the same age as I am. We were born on the very same day. But I think I'm a little older." Abigail giggled. "That's right. We're the same age. Your mother said Timothy arrived at 7 in the morning, and I was born at about 11 at night. You were right about being older, Timothy, but just by a little. I'm usually right about these kinds of things. You know what they say about pride," one of his brothers chided him, which made the others laugh. "And you know what I say about talking at the table," Hannah retorted. "Thank you for cooking this meal, Mom, and I believe you might have helped a little, Abigail." "Abigail did most of it," Hannah passed the food bowls around. Timothy looked over at Abigail. "Did you?" "I wouldn't say I did most of it. I'd say it was about the same." "I saw the cake," one of his younger brothers called out from the little children's table. "Why is there only one cake if 2 people are having birthdays?" Joel stood up and stared at the chocolate cake in the center of the table. Hannah shook her finger at him. "No talking at the table." Timothy was happy to be having his favorite meal and having the woman he liked, maybe even loved, share his birthday, but what would happen when she moved away? It ruined the night when he thought about Tyler. He had seen in Tyler's eyes that he liked Abigail. After dinner, Timothy and Abigail opened gifts that the boys had made for them. Timothy could see Abigail was touched by the thought. Then they all ate birthday cake around the fire in the living room. Afterwards, Timothy helped clear the dishes, and found himself in the kitchen with Abigail and his mother. "Do you need help in here?" he offered. "That's not necessary, Timothy. And besides, it's your birthday," Abigail said. "It's your birthday too." Timothy smiled at her. Then his mother pulled out a chair and sat down. "Oh dear, I have one of my headaches coming on." Timothy hurried over to her and rested a hand on her shoulder. "You haven't had one of your migraines for a couple of years now, Mom. I hope it won't be a bad one, but I'll need to rest. Hannah, go to bed. Timothy and I can finish up in here." "Are you sure?" Abigail took a step closer to Hannah. "Of course. Thank you. I might get an early night. That usually helps. Your father is putting the boys to bed. I'll wake up better in the morning. Do you want me to bring you in a cup of hot tea or anything?" Abigail asked. "No, thank you. I'll just take a glass of water with me, and then it should pass by morning. I do hate to leave you both with the cleanup on your birthdays." "It's fine, Mom," Timothy assured her. When his mother left the room, Abigail wasted no time throwing Timothy a tea towel. "I'll wash you dry." "Okay." "Your family is lovely, Timothy." He unfolded the tea towel. "They're not bad, I suppose. They could be worse. I have a small gift for you. I'll give it to you when we finish the dishes." His face lit up. "What is it?" "I can't tell you. You'll find out soon enough." After the washing up was done, Abigail had Timothy sit down, and from her room she fetched a cardboard folder with pretty flowers. He laughed. "What's this?" He thought it might be a fancy birthday card. She sat down with him. "They're vouchers. Kind of like an I owe you. It's to make up for things I did to you." This one is for cleaning shoes. Not twice or 3 times, just once. She went on to explain the others. They were for all the things she'd bribed him to do. The last one is blank, and it can be used for anything else you can think of. Then we'll be square. He chuckled. That's a lovely idea for a gift. I don't want you to hate me. I saw this as a good way to make things up to you. Timothy let out a huge sigh and rubbed his forehead. I feel dreadful because I didn't get you anything. You don't need to give me anything, Timothy. He laughed. Just joking. I did get you a little something. It's just something small. For real? Of course. He stood and headed over to the high cupboard where he'd hidden it earlier that day. He pulled out the gift wrapped in white tissue paper with a pink ribbon. I feel dreadful. You shouldn't have. He handed it to her. Well, I did, and I hope you like it. I'm sure I will, whatever it is. I rarely get presents. I've been so spoiled today. She untied the ribbon and then ripped off the tissue paper to reveal a white cardboard box. Bringing it close to her ear, she rattled it. Careful, it's breakable. She placed it down on the table and then opened the box. Oh, Timothy. I think it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. She pulled out a pink china teacup and saucer decorated with a white floral pattern. Do you really like it? I love it. It's the best gift anyone's ever given me. She stared at him, and he knew she really meant it. I know how you like your hot tea in the evening. Even better, I can make you some right now and you can drink it from your new teacup. It's too special to use. Ah, no. That's what it's for. You're supposed to use it. When you're in your new house, every time you drink from it, you can think of me. Okay, I will. He stood and filled the tea kettle with water. When he sat again, he said, Now when can I start using those vouchers? She pulled a face. They were kind of like a token gift. Like a way to say I'm sorry for all I put you through. You're not going to make me do those things, are you? I sure am, and I'm looking forward to it. I can think of so many things I can do with the blank one. Slowly, she shook her head at him while he gave a wicked chuckle. Chapter 24. When everybody had gone to sleep, Timothy knocked on the door of Abigail's room, the door that led outside. He recalled her saying that if he wanted something to happen, he had to make it happen. He'd decided he wanted Abigail as his girlfriend, and he was going to do his best to make it happen. She opened the door, surprised to see him. Timothy. I want to use this one right now. He held up the blank voucher. Why has this one got nothing on it? I told you. That's for you to do, have me do anything else that I haven't thought of. I just want to make up for how awful I was to you. He stepped forward. Kiss me. She stepped back. I will not. Have you lost your mind? I think so. She stared into his eyes. We hate each other. I don't hate you. I find you spoiled, irritating, and unreasonable. She lunged forward and kissed him on his cheek. He chuckled and touched his cheek with his fingertips. That's not really the kind of kiss I was looking for, but that will do. Then she kissed him on the lips softly and gently. He stepped back, breaking the kiss because he could barely breathe. His heart pounded and he felt lightheaded. Abigail, you are the only one for me. Don't say things you don't mean. I mean every word. You're too young. He put his hand over his fast-beating heart. I'm old enough to know how I feel. You'd be better off with someone who doesn't have a child, anyway. I've been widowed and have been through a lot, and you've been sheltered in a happy family. We're the same age. I've been through more, so that makes me feel older. I don't care about any of that. Older or younger, it makes no difference. And Ferris? She is an added blessing. You're impetuous, Timothy. You're spoiled, Abigail. She giggled, playfully slapping his arm. You're immature. You're an old lady, he countered with a wicked little grin. She laughed more heartily, and they collapsed into each other's arms. He held her tight and looked past her into the room at Ferris sleeping soundly. With her arms around him and his around her, she said, I had a feeling as soon as I saw you at Rebecca's wedding. It was love at first sight. That's why I was so mean to you, I think. I wanted your attention. That's a funny way to show your feelings. Is that going to stop? She leaned back and looked up at him. It will now. After what you said. He pulled her close to him again. I sure do. With Abigail, his life would be complete. Now that you have fallen in love with me, we'll have to marry. Of course. You will? I will marry you, Timothy. And it's not for some weird reason other than love? She giggled. I told you the second time around would be for love, and I love you, Timothy. They stayed in their embrace for another moment before he stepped back. He couldn't resist testing her. I think we should keep this a secret for a while from my parents. Abigail shook her head. There have been enough secrets, and I don't want any more of those in my life. A smile broke out on his face. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Mom and Dad will be so pleased. We'll tell them first thing tomorrow. Okay? Abigail stepped in closer and he wrapped his arms around her once more. Timothy silently thanked God for bringing Abigail and Ferris to him. The most unlikely woman had become the only woman for him. Thank you for reading The Amish Visitors.